IB Nation, what's going on? This is Notre Dame Recruiting Hour, brought to you by IrishBreakdown.com. Make sure to go hit up the message board, boards@IrishBreakdown.com. We just had another exciting recruiting week as Notre Dame defeated Boston College 44-0 on senior day. And if you watch the game, Notre Dame was up 37-0 at halftime and called off the dogs a little bit in the second half. So dominating fashion for the Notre Dame game. We're going to go into USC week, but Sean, we're off of senior day, off of a gigantic victory, 8-3 record now, 5 straight wins for the Notre Dame program. So all is working, man. All is going really well, coming fresh off of a really big final recruiting weekend of the season as well. The last massive weekend that we're going to kind of break down here. Before we get into this, hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, notification bells. We're going to have a lot more shows. And even though it's Thanksgiving week, still going to be a lot of shows this week, including IB Nation Sports Talk. That'll be tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern. So make sure to subscribe to everything. I already mentioned the boards@IrishBreakdown.com, which we had a nice little intel piece for some of the recruiting gossip of the weekend. And we're here to parlay some of that knowledge. I am Ryan Roberts, Director of Recruiting here at IrishBreakdown.com, joined by Sean Davis, our recruiting analyst, as well as co-host of the Lucky Lefty podcast on the CFB Nation YouTube channel and podcast platform. Sean, it was an exciting weekend, man. I heard that you just got off Lucky Lefty. You're a little fired up, man. Is the rumor on the block? So I guess I
think people need to. Thursday is a great holiday. It's my favorite holiday of the year. Favorite holiday of the year. Favorite. It's called Thanksgiving. And with everything going around that's going to be coming around, I think this fan base needs to learn how to be grateful for what they have. We understand what the perception of Notre Dame in the recruiting landscape was just over a year ago. We understand that Notre Dame in this class, regardless of who stays, goes, for the most part, they're going to break the record for a recruiting class with a staff that's only been together for about 8 months. So I'm not worried about what comes, what goes. Yeah. I'm thankful for what I know. And what I know is that the perception of Notre Dame has been changed in recruiting. They stamped their flag in states that they had no flag just of last year. Important states like Texas, important states like Georgia, important states like Michigan, Illinois, Ohio, dare I say. Yeah, it's too much to be grateful for.
It's a lot to be
about some of the other stuff. So yeah, I am in a Thanksgiving mood already. Right.
Well, Sean, I feel like when we get to the mailbag section of this podcast, which will be the last section, you maybe want to hit us up with some Thanksgiving questions on top of the recruiting info that we're going to drop on you. This is going to be a fun show, man. It is, because what we're working with today, folks, we're going to recap the weekend. A lot of notable names that were on campus, including Kenny Minchey, 2023 quarterback out of the state of Tennessee, Aneyas Williams, top running back target in the 2024 class out of Hannibal High School in Missouri. We had Carter Nelson, first time getting on campus. Sean, who's out of Nebraska, really talented 2024 tight end. Jason Robinson, USC commit at wide receiver. 2024 class was also there. And then I want to tell you all a little bit about a potential preferred walk-on that was on campus that has some big-time offers out of the Pac-12. So we'll hit on all that. Second segment. We are now, Sean, 23 commits in the class. There's 4 spots, maybe 5 at the very most that are left on the table. So during the second segment today, we're going to be talking a lot about who are the players that are remaining on the board? I had a couple people message me earlier today at boards.irishbreakdown.com, just like, hey, who are the last few guys that we should be talking about? Should we keep an eye out for? So we're going to answer that. In that segment, we'll also talk about where things are with several of these players and kind of leading up, because, Sean, you said it. You texted our group chat earlier. You said we have a month until the madness, or the signing day is a month from today, which is going to be it's going to be wild, man. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well in the second segment, and then segment 3 will be the mailbag. Sean, before we get into some of the visitors this weekend, there's one thing that I want to be able to just hit right out the gates, and then we're going to spend about 60 seconds on this bad boy, and then we're moving on to the important things that we have to talk about. I got flooded, and I know you got flooded as well, I'm sure, with the rumors and the questions surrounding Peyton Bowen for the 1 billionth time this season about Peyton Bowen's commitment to Notre Dame. Of course, star safety, 5-star recruit in the 2023 class out of Denton-Guyer High School in Texas, who are still undefeated, still making their march for a potential state championship. He visited Oklahoma this past weekend, Sean. Of course, Oklahoma had a pretty nice win. Beat Oklahoma State 28-13. Defense looked good, especially early on in that football game. Yeah. So now the question is, what's the deal, right? You're hearing a bunch of rumors about Peyton Bowen. And this is where I'm going to say, we're going to spend 60 seconds on this. We're going to get on to the important topics of today, all right? There is a lot of things that are going to be said. There are a lot of things that have been said, a lot of rumors that have been thrown out there. And we've talked a lot about this on the board, about some of the rumors that we know are just flat out not true in the past. We've talked about this. All right. This is all I'll say about this, is that it is recruiting. Anything could happen. I understand why people keep asking about it. I completely understand. All I'll say is after this weekend, there's a lot of rumors floating around, and we have spoken to multiple sources that have, and it seems to be in the same exact spot, Sean. We think that Notre Dame feels good about where their chances are to land Peyton Bowen. We don't think there's been any movement on that front. So I still expect Peyton Bowen to be a part of the 2023 class when all is said and done. We'll see. Obviously, we have a month of clarity to get to that point, and we'll see how everything finishes out. But my opinion has not changed on the fact. Sources' opinions have not changed about that fact. So right now, still feel good about Peyton Bowen's chances. And don't ask me about crystal balls in the chat, because I'm not talking about crystal balls of other people's sites in the chat. You want to go to boards.irishbreakdown.com. We'll tell you exactly what is happening. If there are things to be anxious about, if there are things to be worried about, if there are things to be excited about, we'll tell you all that at boards.irishbreakdown.com. I am not going to comment on someone's crystal ball. Not going to do it. All right. That's their business. They can put their opinion out there. He can comment on whatever social media thing Peyton wants to comment on, right? I don't want to hear it. All right. So yes, Jaden Greathouse is gone. I say super sarcastically, as people are now asking me this. Why are people asking me about Jaden Greathouse? All right. That's it, though. Done with Peyton Bowen. Done, Sean. We're moving on, because I am so tired of talking about this, man. So tired. I know. And Brandon just said it wasn't even a crystal ball. I know, Brandon. I know. It's just crystal balls, recruiting intel, whatever. All right. I'm going to trust our sources. And there it is. There it is. So, yeah, still feel good about where Peyton is. Just all we're at right here, man. So, Sean, let's get into some of the recruits that were on campus this past weekend, not guys that were on visits other spots. Right. So, want to go down this list, Sean. I know we need to spend a large talk here about this. And the main focus that I know people are going to keep asking about is Kenny Minchey, 2023 quarterback out of the state of Tennessee, former Pitt commit that decommitted before his visit to Notre Dame. Coming out of the weekend, Sean, Notre Dame, I think, has to feel very good with their chances. We wrote on the message board, and Brian kind of said this, and I will reiterate it again. We feel like at this point, it's not a question of if it'll happen, it's a question of when it will happen. Everything we've heard, Notre Dame knocked that visit out of the park. He really meshed with other commits on campus, including Drake Bowen. He's been in conversations with CJ Carr behind the scenes. Everything with the coaching staff went really well. So I think this one is, again, it's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's when, and it would be a massive, massive victory for Notre Dame at the quarterback position, Sean, because it looked very bleak not too long ago for quarterback recruiting in 2023.
I think the relationship, and I heard this and I thought it stood out very well to me. It was like he's been in the class the whole time. Like that was the vibe with him hanging out with Drake Bowen, Christian Gray, Charles Jagasaw, and the rest of the 23 commits. He wasn't a new guy. He wasn't a guy that they were trying to convince to come to Notre Dame. He moved with them like he was a commit, like he was already part of the class and he had been with the class. And hearing that coming from them and the commits and them talking about how great of a time they had with him just bodes well. It bodes well. And like you said, go over to Irish Board, the boards.irishbreakdown.com right now. You get the full intel. It was just a fantastic, fantastic visit from Friday night. Pictures of him being in the stadium with Tommy Rees on Friday night and just immediately coming to the campus when he gets in town. And just the vibe of everything and his feelings, seeing him take a picture with Drew Pine in the locker room after the game, fraternizing with the players on the current roster. It feels like he's at home. It just comes across like this guy's at home. So that's fantastic.
Sorry, Sean. I'm just looking at the chat, man. Y'all are wild in the chat, man. It goes so many different ways in the chat. I just can't with this, man. But
again, get caught up in the chat, yeah.
You really can get caught up in the chat, man. Like there's a couple times where I've had to do solo shows, and I'm just like, I'm like trying to reiterate a conversation while also getting caught in the chat with what people are saying. And these things it goes from like quarterback recruiting to decommitment city to Daniel Jones being a top 5 running back in the NFL. Someone, Archer just said in the chat, like this is a wild, wild chat, man. So yes, love y'all though. You all are really, really funny. You really are. So getting back to the point though, Sean, we feel great about where things are. When it ends is still a little bit of a question. We don't think it'll be, a terrible wait to figure out the Kenny Minchey stuff, but Notre Dame did great things for themselves this weekend, man. I feel like even with let's put it like this, right? Let's put it like this. Notre Dame's passing offense has not been great throughout the majority of the season, but you saw the dominance that you could have offensively at Notre Dame with the running game you have, with the offensive line you have, the tight end room that has been historically at Notre Dame. So great things for Kenny Minchey to get excited about, which I know we're also very excited about. So, excuse me. That's where we are with the Kenny Minchey situation. Not a matter of if, we feel like it's a matter of when. So another big player, Sean, that a lot of conversation and a lot of rumors have been working around recently over the last couple of weeks is Aneyas Williams, running back out of Hannibal High School in the state of Missouri, all-time leader in touchdowns in the state of Missouri, and he's only a junior in high school, 2024 kid.
Yeah.
So, Sean, he just visited during the Clemson game a couple weeks ago, came back for the game against Boston College, saw some good pictures of him, looked at home. I'm told by everything that we have heard, visit went really well, as it usually does. But him being back on campus just a couple weeks after visiting for the Clemson game during that massive victory is a great sign for Notre Dame, first and foremost. Now I'm told that he spent a lot of time with some of the commits that are in the class of Notre Dame. I think that he continues to develop a really deep relationship with the players and the coaches on the staff, which is fantastic to see. We know that this is directly from Aneyas' mouth. Before this visit, he talked to a different outlet where he basically said, I don't want this to drag on too much longer. I don't want to drag this on, right? Like, I want this to be over with in the near future. We feel that Notre Dame entered the trip as the clear favorite for Aneyas Williams. I feel like he left the trip even more entrenched as the favorite for Aneyas Williams, that being Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So this is another one that you have to feel really good about. When does he ultimately make the decision? Not 100% sure, right? We've heard multiple things back and forth. Think Notre Dame is in a great spot. I think Aneyas is still going to take a couple visits from everything that we're hearing, but you have to feel good about it. You have to. And for a recruiting process here, I mean, you're talking about having on the roster already guys like Logan Diggs, Audric Estime, Chris Tyree, Jadarian Price, Jabron Payne. Now you're throwing in Jeremiah Love and Jane Lamar in the 2023 class, and then potentially following that up with Aneyas Williams, Sean. All-purpose back, super talented. Notre Dame's got to be excited about potentially getting a commitment from him, hopefully sometime in the near future.
It just goes to everything that's being built, right? And this kid still has another year. I'm talking about Aneyas Williams, and is already holding records. I don't even know how to describe his film, right? Because you feel like, man, he's jumping out, but I know he's better than everybody else because of the level.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's just like, I don't care what level you play. It shouldn't be this easy. Like, he's so good that he makes it look easy. And even when I don't care what level you play at, right? It was like when Lisa Leslie, I remember, like when the story broke that she scored 100 in a high school game. And I'm like, what? That's only 30.
She scored 100 in a high school game?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, yo, it was only 32 minutes in a high school game.
That's wild.
How she scored 100? And it's like, people were like, well, the team was bad. I'm like, dude, I don't care how bad the team was. She scored 100 points in a high school game. And this is Aneyas Williams, because a lot of people try to push back on the competition he plays and all of that stuff. Look, he's a dude. He's a dude. Don't get caught up on whether or not he has 5 stars. Look, he's wanted at Alabama. He's wanted at some of the top schools that have the best running backs. That's all.
Sean, go look at his top 10 list, man. It is wild. It's wild.
That's all you need to know. And so when you point that out, you can get above or you can get beyond all of that type of talk. And to stack him, if they're able to stack him on top of the running back class that they already have, and you would think, because this is what Irish fans ask for, some of them, right? Irish fans say, we love Kyron Williams.
Yep.
We love Juice and what he gave to the program, Dexter Williams. We love Josh Adams. We love all the running backs, but we've never really had like that stud running back behind what is normally a great offensive line in Notre Dame. Well, you know what staff has changed that? You know what staff actually looked at a running back that was committed and said, you know what? He's really similar to what we've had in the past, but where we want to go, it's not good enough. And they took the blow from the public and from the media, and they parted ways. Why? To go get guys like a Jeremiah Love, to go get guys like an Aneyas Williams, to put those elite guys behind what is always normally a great offensive line in Notre Dame. This is what the fan base has been asking for. This is the raise and elevation of recruiting they've been asking for, and the staff is giving it to you. And hopefully they're going to stack that with Aneyas Williams in the class of 24 as well.
And Sean, the thing that I love about the Aneyas Williams fit is, I mean, one, you're getting a guy that plays with just such high competitiveness, man. He is, I said this to Brian multiple times, Sean. I'd love to hear if you agree with me, but I feel like he finds it disrespectful that people want to tackle him. Like he has a real, like, he has a objectivity to him where he's just like, what, dude, you're trying to tackle me? Like, that is the most disrespectful thing in the world. And he plays like that. He's got that chip on his shoulder, kind of like Kyron did, right? Like Kyron, I think took it very personal that guys wanted to try to beat him. And I think that sometimes you miss that type of spark from your leaders. And Kyron was a great leader. We've talked about that a ton of times. And the one other reason that I love him so much, though, on top of just having the competitiveness and having a good all-around profile, is he brings something, in my opinion, that you don't have much of in the running back room. And what I mean by that is that Audric Estime is a fantastic runner, physical, downhill, catches the ball surprisingly well, too, for his size, right? Like he does all those things. But the core of what he is a downhill power runner. Yeah. Logan Diggs has a pretty solid all-around profile. You know, he can catch the football. He's got a good one-cut ability, enough quickness and explosiveness to make you, have to, be mindful of what he can bring to the football game. Jadarian Price is lightning in a bottle. I can't wait to see him at Notre Dame because he is just explosive. Jabron Payne's a decent all-around player. I think that he has these good hands. I think he's got good speed, good football player. Yeah. Jeremiah Love's bringing a little bit of that all-around profile to the game. And then you have Jane Lamar, who's also bringing that. But I think Aneyas, out of all those guys, is the most natural receiver out of all these players. I know people always say, who's the running back that you can put into the slot, that you can motion out wide and do those types of things? I think Aneyas Williams could be that dude. Like he honestly, he's got that Amir Carlisle feel to his game in the sense that I think he could be a full-time slot receiver if he wanted to be.
His film, if you just take his film from when they split him out wide, he would be a 4-star wide receiver easily. Like, dude, just go out there. We're going to throw you this 50-50 ball. We need you to go up over 2 defenders and bring it in. Who does that in high school as a sophomore? Who does that in high school as a junior? Who has that versatility? That's what he and Jeremiah Love bring. That might not be there. Like, you talk about Logan Diggs. Can you imagine a backfield or a room in the future of Jadarian, Aneyas, and Jeremiah, and Jay Lamar? And everybody has versatility. Yes. We're not like saying this is our power guy. Everybody can do everything. Everybody has versatility. That's insane.
Sean, it's great right now because I feel like the 3 running backs on the roster that play the most for Notre Dame right now, that being, of course, Estime, Logan Diggs, and Chris Tyree, they all have very different skill sets, right? But the one thing about that is that there's going to be some things that you're not going to ask Audric Estime to do because it's not really in his wheelhouse. There's going to be some things that you don't ask Chris Tyree to do because it's not in his wheelhouse. As you get more guys like Jeremiah Love and potentially Aneyas Williams into the classes for the next couple cycles, you have now players that I think can do a little bit of everything, right? Like you don't have to simplify and compartmentalize like this is the role he has in our offense. No, you can ask Aneyas Williams to run outside zone. He can run inside. He can catch the football. Same thing with Jeremiah Love. They can do a little bit of everything. So that's my biggest thing is that you're now starting to get running backs also that are good at multiple things. Because I love Audric Estime, right? I love him. But I'm not putting Audric Estime out into the slot much, right? Like that's not going to be his role in my offense. Doesn't make him less of a great player because he's great for what he does. But I just think that these guys give you a lot of options.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think Dylan McCullough, I remember talking to him in March, and he was talking to the media as we stood in front of him. He said, look, I want 4 to 5 different types of backs in my running back room. And it was like, wow. Okay. He was like, I really feel like he told us this. He said, I really feel like I have that now with the guys that I have. But he said, moving forward, that's the plan. And he said, I have all types of backs in the room now, and I'm going to continue to develop them to be those backs and for them to be the best that they are. And the fact that I wish this is a question that I know, rest in peace, Loose Emoji would have the immediate answer to. But I was like, when's the last time Notre Dame had the possibility of 2,000-yard rushes in a season? Like, the best we could come up with, I'm putting my mind together with Malik was like CJ and maybe Josh.
Yeah.
But
wasn't Theo and
he said Theo and Sierra.
Theo and Sierra. Yeah.
But he said Theo ended up being all purpose over 1,000 and not purely rushing yards.
Gotcha.
for both of them going into the final 2 games, having a chance to get over 1,000 yards, that just speaks volumes to the way that the Notre Dame rushing attack has evolved. It's become the strength of the team. But then have 2 backs do it 2 totally different ways.
Yep.
Is impressive.
Sean, you know what's wild too, man, is how quickly things have turned around at running back too. Because there were a couple years there, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember Tony Jones, right? When he was the leading rusher, it was like if Tony Jones gets hurt, you're in trouble, man. Like, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
I remember going into the Georgia game, right, with Tony Jones as the only healthy rusher. And basically, Brian Kelly said something, I believe it was after the game, where he just said, like, we knew we were going to be able to run the ball. And I'm just like, well, you probably were going to lose if that was the standpoint you had before the game, right? It's wild how much they have changed the pulse of the running back room. You know?
Isn't that amazing how Brian Kelly can say that going into a game, which schematically you heard. I don't know if you heard Marcus Freeman. I don't think Marcus Freeman said this, but Tommy Rees pretty much said it going into the Fiesta Bowl with his attack, letting Jax throw the ball 50 times. Tommy Rees pretty much said, we knew we couldn't run the ball. We knew we couldn't run the ball. And then you hear Marcus Freeman say after the game, yo, I don't care how many in the box. We have to be able to run the ball. It's like it's a totally different mentality. And I venture to say that's what makes it even more impressive, Ryan. Mm-hmm. There's been 8, 9 in the box. There is no quarterback to protect or back the safeties off. They're doing this with everyone keyed on the running backs, and they're still going to get 2,000-yard rushers or have the possibility of getting 2,000-yard rushers.
And Logan Diggs was banged up to begin the year too, and he missed the football game. So
he's come on like a game, man. He's come on. He's hot. He's the hottest back in the room, without question.
Last game for sure. Last game was fantastic. Yeah, man. I wish he had a little more juice though, man. That 51-yarder, bro, he would have been out the gate. But yeah,
isn't it amazing? Because if I lined him up with Josh Adams, straight line speed, I would probably think they wouldn't be too far off. But Josh Adams just seemed like he had an extra gear once he got in the open field. Like, because I didn't expect Josh Adams to go to the when he ran his 40 at his pro day and run a 4.4.
He was banged up too, man. He was banged up too.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to run a 4.3, but it just seemed like even though he didn't have that top of the line 40 speed, once he got into the open, he was something. Out. He was out. Yeah. He was out. That juice that you're talking about, yeah.
And that's what you have coming in now with Jeremiah Love and Dylan Edwards get a little work in the backfield. You know, we know he's going to play mostly slot gadget type, but like you get him a crease, man. He's out. Yeah. He's out. Yeah. So yeah, it's just again, man. I always think back to the Clemson game, Sean. It's like you threw for 80-something yards and had stacked boxes all day, and you ran for 260 plus against that defense. It's just
all day. And honestly, when you look at moving forward, what is going to be done to them or what possibly USC can employ or deploy against them, it won't be anything new. Like, there is nothing new.
No.
And that's kind of the blessing in disguise of the Navy game, in my opinion. Because I don't think Navy kind of came at it a different way as far as like putting 8, 9 in the box, right? Because they were all about pressure. We're coming off the edges, hard, pressure. Like Clemson came off the edge, but if you watch that game, they came off kind of passive.
Yep.
And then they were just coming across with wham blocks and just pushing them out. It's almost like they were running, just flat out running into what Notre Dame wanted them to do. Look, Navy was the aggressor. They were aggressive early. They got hit, and then they doubled down on the aggression. And I think that kind of shocked Notre Dame a little bit. Like, oh, man. So now you can't surprise Notre Dame with that. They've seen everything. They know how you're going to attack them and attack the running game. And getting guys in like Jeremiah Love and game breakers, that causes a little bit of hesitation from a coordinator standpoint, in my opinion, right? Because you're not going to commit so much to the running game, knowing that any open lane can lead to 60, 65 to the house on any given play. And that is what we're talking about when you talk about Aneyas Williams and you talk about Jeremiah Love being added to the running game moving forward.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun times, man, watching this running. Because the thing, Sean, is that this is just the beginning of what the running back room is going to look like, man. I mean, we got to remember, SMA and Diggs are sophomores, man, with the talent that's coming in as well. It's going to be wild, man. It's really going to be wild. It's fun to see. Again, for a position that was a bit of a weakness there for a little bit, is now turning into a strength. It's awesome. Let me talk to you, Sean. I know this is early in this process, right? 2024, we're talking about high school juniors. I already have a little bit of a recruiting crush in the 2024 class, Sean. I do. I'll be fully honest about it, man. Young man named Carter Nelson, who is a tight end out of the state of Nebraska, Sean. I'm going to read some of these particulars about him, all right? He was supposed to visit Notre Dame for the Clemson game, all right? Wasn't able to get out to Clemson for the Clemson game because the airplane was canceled. So his plane ride was canceled. Okay. Couldn't make it out. Even though he couldn't get to Clemson, Notre Dame was planning on offering him that weekend. So they still called him, offered him a scholarship. So he made it a priority to get back. And they drove 11 and a half hours from Nebraska to get to Notre Dame this week. His dad told me that they wanted to make sure that they drove out so that they had some control over their travel situation. Okay.
Yeah.
So he traveled over here. I want to throw out just some of his particulars as a player real quick, Sean. So he's 6'5", 210 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark. So he needs to gain weight.
Yeah.
Plays a lot of quarterback in high school. 15 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Plays 8-man football in the state of Nebraska, by the way. So leads the team in touchdown passes, 15. Also the team's leading rusher with over 700 yards and 14 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, Sean, not only that, he's also the team's leading receiver with over 500 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Okay, you're selling me.
I'm still going, man. I'm still going.
You're selling me.
Defensive side of the football, 6 interceptions playing linebacker safety. So he plays everywhere on defense. Oh, and by the way, 40 yards of punts as the team's main punter as well, Sean.
Now you're cheating because now you're throwing what I love about Notre Dame and that special team. You just threw that little nugget in there.
Oh man.
Okay.
Sean, I'm not done, man. I'm not done.
Oh,
as if the football background isn't impressive enough, he also is a track and field athlete where I would argue that his track and field numbers are even more impressive than his football numbers. As a sophomore, again, 6'5", 210. Visualize that in your minds. Visualize that.
Yeah.
7-foot high jumper. And for people that don't understand that, as a sophomore, that is good enough to get you jumping at the best colleges in the country. A 7-foot high jumper. Also, weird body type for a pole vaulter, but he's a 13'8" pole vaulter, Sean. He can pole vault in college if he wants to right now. By the way, 11:05 in the 100-meter as a sophomore at 6'5", 210 pounds. Oh, by the way, also 170-foot discus thrower on top of all that. My guy is one of those players, Sean, that you look at and one of those kids where you're like, darn, man, he's just good at everything. He's good at everything. By the way, I'm not done. I'm not done, Sean. Because I know you're a big basketball guy.
I am.
As a sophomore last year, Carter Nelson averaged 13 points a game, 9 rebounds a game, 3.5 steals a game, 1.5 blocks a game, and 5 assists a game. And if you turn on his highlight tape, it is Duncan Palooza, man. He's throwing out windmills. He's trying to go between the legs. Insane athlete. So before I tell you about his weekend, Sean, I just want to lay out all that, man, is you would be good luck trying to find a more impressive athlete in the 2024 class than Carter Nelson. My man is a freak athlete.
So basically, you're saying we're getting the next Tony Gonzalez.
Well, I'm not saying we're getting them. I'm not saying Notre Dame's getting them. I'm just saying Notre Dame's in the conversation.
I'll speak it into existence. So you're saying if we land this kid, we're getting the next Tony Gonzalez. Because you talk basketball and everything and the different things he does. I like it. I like him a lot.
I will tell you this, man. Again, this is like, Sean, honestly, this is like super hyperbolic, and I know people don't like when I get too hyperbolic sometimes. This is a kid about 30 years from now that Ainsworth High School in Nebraska is going to be talking about the legend of Carter Nelson. No BS, man, because he goes to a small school, not a ton of population, 8-man football. People are going to be talking about him forever. They'll be like, what? Where the heck did this kid come from, man? Yeah. Like he's an alien. People are going to be talking about that. It's wild. So back to the original point. He comes to the visit this weekend, Sean. Yeah. There was a lot of intrigue from Carter Nelson and his family about Notre Dame because what's going on now is that he's blowing up on the recruiting circles, right? Top 150 kid pretty much all the way across the board now on every major recruiting platform. Again, from a very small school. So he is now getting a ton of interest from all over the place, which has pushed his date back. He wanted to make a decision sometimes early in the spring during track season. He has now kind of said, the family has kind of said, we're probably going to push this back a little bit, let him take visits, figure stuff out because more teams are now coming after him. All these schools want him.
Yeah.
But so he was intrigued with Notre Dame. From everything I am hearing and everything that I put on the message board, visit went eye-opening is the term that I heard from the source close to Carter Nelson. Got along with Jared Parker extremely well. They were very complimentary of Jared Parker in general about his intelligence as a football coach, the energy he brings, and make no mistake about it, what they are seeing on the football fields with Michael Mayer is a big sell to Carter Nelson because Carter and his family grew up as Nebraska fans. They told me straight up that they grew up as Nebraska fans. They did. Okay. Nebraska's on them, obviously. But Notre Dame, I think, put a massive step forward this weekend, okay? This is not one that's going to be decided in the near future, but I think Notre Dame just put themselves firmly in the conversation on this one. Coaching staff was great. He also put my source put a huge shout out to the fans that were in attendance, even despite it being cold and it not being great weather, and them having it was a very lopsided victory for Notre Dame. The energy in the stadium, they told me, was fantastic, and they really appreciated all the fans. A lot of fans also knew who Carter was, which is pretty wild. I mean, again, a kid that's from a small school in Nebraska, that stuff matters, man. That stuff does matter. So, I mean, Sean, they knocked it out of the park with Carter Nelson, man. Felt like they did a really good job for themselves this weekend.
We try to make it known to fans how important they are when these kids are on campus. And that's what stands out to these kids. The fact that these little kids walk up and they want their autographs. I'm not talking about the current roster kids. I'm talking about kids that are in the class of 24, 23, 25, being recognized by kids 10, 11 years old. Can I have your autograph? That makes an impression. Students knowing these guys, fans knowing these guys, and just a simple hello. It really blows the mind of recruits for them to be like, man, they know me. It was one of the things that stood out to Drake Bowen and why he loves the atmosphere so much. He talked about that in his recruiting. It goes beyond Notre Dame, his love for Marcus Freeman, how his parents loved Marcus Freeman and what he stood for, but just the love and adulation of the fan base and how they make you feel when you come to the game. That's what Notre Dame is all about. That's why Notre Dame is special, right? Whether you go from independence, whether you go to the Golden Standard, whether you go to what Marcus Freeman and his staff are attempting to establish, on down to the fan base, on down to the way we talk about Notre Dame each and every day right here, and the way we do things on Irish Breakdown, the uniqueness of the brand and uniqueness of the experience. A game day experience at Notre Dame, it isn't like a game day experience in the South. It's nothing like a game day experience out west. It's nothing like a game day experience out east. It is its own unique character in the game of college football, or in this story of college football. That's why you have to love it. And that is what grabs the guys that immediately, or not immediately, at some point, commit or choose to commit to Notre Dame. It is what it is. He won't find another experience like it. That's not to say he won't find one that's just as enjoyable.
Sure.
But he won't find
the uniqueness.
Yes.
Yeah.
He won't find another experience like it.
And Sean, I think this is always a big step. We always talk about it's just like a different vibe being on campus, right?
Yeah.
I said it. When I talked to his father after he was offered, and he kind of said at that point, like, oh, Carter's extremely intrigued. Like, he knows about Notre Dame, but like he doesn't know enough about Notre Dame. And that's obviously why they made it a priority to get to campus. And again, the term that I got from a source was eye-opening for Carter, like, and the family. I think that they see everything that they needed to see, right? And I know people talked about the weather this weekend and all that type of stuff. Like, they're from Nebraska. You think they care about weather? That's not going to be it's not going to be much of a talking point for them. But Jared Parker, I thought, did a fantastic job in this one from everything I heard. Seeing a great football game obviously was a big step. Seeing Michael Mayer break another record is a big step. I mean, it's tight end you, man. It is. And I think that Carter and his family understand the draw to Notre Dame football, which is great. A great. I want to keep saying great. It's a great step, man. It's a great step because they have Jack Larson in the 2024 class, who's a very talented tight end in his own right, out of Charlotte Catholic in North Carolina. But he's more 6'3", 220 plus pounds tight end who's kind of more of a move piece, line him up all over the place. This kid can do all those types of things. Talking about Carter Nelson, but he's also got that 6'5" frame where Sean, I mean, when he stops doing all these sports, he's going to be 250 plus, easy money. And he's still going to be athletic, man. So one of my favorite recruits already in the 2024 class. I think Notre Dame's in a good spot after the visit. Will they close on it? Will they be at the end of the day, the team for him? Lot to be decided there. Because again, I think the in-state appeal of Nebraska, because he's from a small town in Nebraska, they all grew up Husker fans. They did. It's very, very understandable, and it's been put out into the open. So, and there's also going to be a lot of suitors for Carter Nelson around college football. So not be his last visit. So we'll see kind of what happens. But I mentioned, Sean, weather's not going to be a big thing for him. But a player that was on campus that it could be a big deal for, that we talked about going into the weekend, is Jason Robinson. USC commits in the 2024 class at wide receiver. He's a Long Beach Poly kid out of California, Sean. I know you know a lot about California with your daughter going to USC, so you know that the appeal from Cali kids to come north, not north, well, northeast, is a little bit daunting at times, right? And obviously he gets the weather, he gets the snow, he gets the cold. He got a taste of what a Notre Dame winter could be this past weekend, man. So we're still working on getting a little more in-depth on the visit, but I was told directly from Jason Robinson that it was going beyond where he thought it would be, right? Like he used the word, what was the exact word he used? He used the word, I'm going to get it right now because we're blessed with technology, Sean, where we can just find information out so quickly. So he said, surreal and loving it. Okay, is the direct kind of terminology that he used on this trip. So everything seemed to have gone really well. I don't know how realistic he is in the 2024 class. From everything I'm hearing from sources, I do believe Notre Dame likes Jason Robinson a ton. Will they be able to pull him away from Southern California? I don't know, Sean. But regardless, the fact that he had a nice visit and he thoroughly enjoyed himself working with these weather conditions and the coldness of this past weekend, I think that's a nice sign for Notre Dame. It has to be, in my opinion.
It's reverse psychology.
Okay.
It's reverse psychology. Like, we're going to give you the worst of it and still show you can have a great time.
Sure.
We don't need everything to be perfect for you to enjoy Notre Dame. You had a great visit, and there was snow falling. It's magical. Don't look at it as a bad thing. It's magic. It's Notre Dame. It's what makes us special. I tell my daughter all the time, every time she leaves, I say, your closet is still full. And you know what she tells me? All I need is t-shirts and shorts. That's boring. Like no seasons, no change, no sweaters, nothing. You can leave all your winter coats here. Like, what is that? Who wants that experience? So that's the pitch, right? Like you've been living this life your whole life, waking up 75. It gets boring. Come to where you get some diversity.
Yeah.
A diverse lifestyle. You're able to experience some things that you might not otherwise experience.
We've seen that a lot too, Sean, just this 2023 cycle with a lot of the Texas kids, right? Like Braylon James didn't want to stay in Texas. He wanted to do something different. He wanted to stay here. He wanted to stay there, which is hysterical with that TCU rumor that was circulating like a week ago. I'm like, Braylon James wants to stay in Texas. Sure, he does. Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, you're not wrong though. I think that there's especially kids that are open to Notre Dame, especially, right? Because a lot of kids go to Notre Dame because there's unknown factor, right? What it could be, what it's like being a student at such a high academic institution, what it's like being on campus. Like, it's different, right? And the uniqueness that you spoke about earlier in the show, I think that does resonate with a lot of kids, man. Like, I really do think it does. The kids that are meant to be there, right? The kids that are open-minded enough to explore other options other than what they know, which is pretty interesting, man. It's pretty interesting. But things have gone well with Jason Robinson. We'll have a little more in-depth on the boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com when we have I'm scheduled to have a little bit of a deeper conversation with him. But again, went really well, enjoyed his time thoroughly, and it's a great sign, the fact that enjoyment happens during a 20-something degree day with snow on the ground at Notre Dame, right? Like, there's great sign. Last guy I wanted to hit on, Sean, in our recap of this weekend, we're about to talk about a young man who is being recruited by Notre Dame as a preferred walk-on in the 2023 class, Sean. First of all, how many other shows out there are talking about preferred walk-ons on their recruiting hours, Sean? I don't think there's many, but I will tell you this. Luke Tolick, or Tolich, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, out of the state of Wyoming, Sean, Cody High School in Wyoming. Someone asked about him a couple weeks ago. We knew that he was scheduled to get on campus and, experience everything in Notre Dame this weekend. He had been on campus before for a evaluation camp, to try to see if they were a good fit for Notre Dame, all that type of stuff, right? So, Sean, pop on this kid's film. And I got to tell you, man, this was some of the most fun film that I have seen in a long time. 6'3" listed, 185. He plays everywhere on this team. Plays mostly safety, though. And Notre Dame is targeting him as a safety in the 2023 class. My guy, again, small town, Wyoming, all that good stuff, right? Hits like an absolute ton of bricks, man. Every shot is just him decleating a dude, and just a fantastic physicality to the position. Here's the thing about it, though, Sean, and I want to talk about this. I talked about this with Brian a little bit last week. We have not given enough credit to Notre Dame, not for the recruiting aspect of like, hey, the 23 commits that you have in the class, top 3 class in the country, all that stuff's great. But targeting a kid like a Luke Tolich is, I think, beyond impressive, because Notre Dame has several preferred walk-ons that are interested in potentially being a part of the class.
Yeah.
That I don't think we spend enough time talking about. This Tolich, it has offers from Utah, Oregon State, and Washington State, a Wyoming kid, Sean. That's 3 Pac-12 offers. That is substantial opportunities for him. And from what I hear, he's a take at all 3 schools. They would take his commitment right now. That's a free education. That's free living, like that's everything, right? Like you are getting an opportunity to play football at the highest level, get a free education out of it. Despite that, he has told me directly, Notre Dame is a dream school. It is. It always has been.
Yeah.
Now, he isn't going to get a scholarship offer from Notre Dame. He's a preferred walk-on. But after this visit, Sean, I am convinced that there's a good chance that Notre Dame lands this kid, pretty good chance, as a preferred walk-on, despite the fact that he has 3 Pac-12 offers to his docket. Like, this kid is a 3-star level player, but a player that should not be a preferred walk-on anywhere. He has opportunities to play football at a different school and have a free education. And the fact that Notre Dame is potentially able to land a kid like this as a preferred walk-on, staff has to get credit for this. And I just want to send a shout out to Luke for a second, man, because he is a good football player. If Notre Dame's able to land this kid, this is the type of kid that plays special teams pretty early in his career, earns a scholarship down the road, and he's a scholarship football player at the University of Notre Dame. Like, I have no doubt about it. This kid is a very talented player. And I think Notre Dame, again, we have to give them a kudos. Even being in the conversation with a kid like this as a preferred walk-on that has this level of offers, it's big time, man. Big time for the staff.
And the importance of having those walk-ons at a certain level, right? Football program is, we get caught up in 5 stars and what's at the top. Successful football programs are really good at the bottom layers. That's what holds things up. It goes into your practice. It goes into your preparation. It goes into your scout team. Like, getting those guys that establish so much within your program, because most of the time they're some of your hardest workers, because they don't have a scholarship to fall back on. They're out there because they love the team, they love the program, they love the game. Like that, it doesn't get any more pure than that when it comes to the football program. And when you can elevate the level of athleticism and talent on that level, it makes an impact within your program in several ways. So, like you said, you can't diminish guys like this coming on as preferred walk-ons, being added to the program. And eventually, who knows? They can earn a scholarship. Maybe in 2-3 years. So, yeah, you can't, poo-poo these guys. Because we've seen about, I would say, 5 to 6 lately come to campus in different positions, and whether they were committed before in a different sport, and now they're coming back interested in the football program. It's a reason why. There's a reason why. And this just goes to the recognition of the staff of understanding how to properly build a national title roster. It's not just about the guys up top. It takes everyone within that program. Coaches, staff, assistants, support staff, players, walk-ons, everybody contributes. Everybody's important. And that's the vibe you have to have within your program.
I mean, and Jordan Faison, Sean, committed to Notre Dame to play football as well as a preferred walk-on. He's committed to the lacrosse team, so he's going to play lacrosse and football. But again, those types of kids, getting them as walk-ons, man, because he is a legit good athlete who's going to play some slot receiver at Notre Dame. So again, just continuing to get good football players, not only scholarship-level football players, but walk-ons. I think, again, you're building this program to a different type of talent level over the next couple of years. It's going to be fun to watch. So I just wanted to send, again, shout out to Luke, really good football player out of the state of Wyoming. I think he's going to do it. If Notre Dame can land him, I think he'll do a tremendous job. I think he's a future scholarship player at the next level. I truly do. So that's the recruiting background of this past weekend, Sean. We're not going to spend as much time talking about the players that put on great performances from the high school perspective, but I am going to drop it into the chat because I know somebody was asking about it sometime earlier in the show. I included Jeremiah Love in the conversation, who just had a 15-carry, 172-yard, 2-touchdown performance and their victory this past weekend. I included Jaden Lamar, who had a fantastic game. Jaden Greathouse, who threw a touchdown pass and had a punt return for a touchdown for Westlake and the state of Texas. Drake Bowen, of course, everyone knows what that man is doing, Sean. Nearly 360 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. They're going to the state championship game next week. Peyton Bowen had a big-time performance. So the future of Notre Dame football was, again, on great exhibition this past weekend, man, which was just fun to see. But that's going to do it for this Notre Dame Recruiting Hour conversation, the weekend recap part of this podcast. We're going to move now on to the 2023 recruiting class. Talk about the last couple players that you should be able to, you should get excited about, that you should have your eyes locked in on. Before we talk about the 2023 class, the rest of it, you could like, share, subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell, sign up for Boris at IrishBreakdown.com, and of course, go check out IrishBreakdown.com as well, so that you can take a gander at some of the intel that we've been able to gather from this past weekend and what the rest of the recruiting process will look like. All right, Sean, so I wanted to spend some time on the 2023 recruiting class. There are now 23 commits in the class, and we believe, as we currently sit, there are 4 spots that will be open for business for Notre Dame. So potentially push them to 27 commits in the class if they're able to finish out the way that we think they can in this class. And there is an opportunity, depending on defections from the roster. So that is, of course, transfers, players leaving early, all that, medical retirements, all that type of stuff, right? Those things all go into the scholarship numbers for next year. Depending on how things goes, there could be an opportunity to maybe get to 28, but we know 27 is for sure the number that Notre Dame is going to go to, Sean. Yeah. So let's talk about the positions that we think that Notre Dame still wants to hit. First, we talked about a little bit earlier in the show. Kenny Minchey is one for sure that Notre Dame wants in this class. 2023 quarterback out of the state of Tennessee. Pope John Paul II. He was on campus for this past weekend against Boston College. We think everything is in a really good spot with them. We do anticipate that he may eventually be a part of this class. It's more a matter of when, not if at this point. But again, Sean, just want to reiterate this. Big opportunity for Notre Dame to land a great talent in a Kenny Minchey in the 2023 class. I know we talked about it a little bit, but again, just want to reiterate the importance of getting a quarterback class in what seems to be a historic quarterback cycle, the 2023 recruiting class.
Coming from where we were a month ago, it feels bigger than what it probably would have felt like if he had committed back when the original overtures were made by Notre Dame earlier in the season. If he had flipped then, it probably would have been like, oh man, that's nice. But getting to this point and understanding how much of a disappointment it would have been for such a really good class for Marcus Freeman in his first full season, not to have a quarterback would have called a lot into question about the recruitment of the former quarterback that was in the class and going all in, and was that a mistake? And all these questions probably would have followed this class their entire time at Notre Dame. And now being able to be in position and position themselves to whereas Kenny Minchey wants to be, goes back to the report that we did last week with, letting everyone know that Kenny Minchey really kind of established the communication to get things going. It was his interest. And I think that goes a long way into showing or kind of collaborating with what we heard this weekend about the vibe and the feel of him feeling like he's at home, not feeling like he's being pitched. He was just enjoying being at Notre Dame rather than feeling like, oh man, this is a pitch. You have to show me why. It was like he called. This is something that he's very interested in, or he wants, if you want to use that word. And it changes the entire dynamic of how the weekend goes. So it would have been great for it to happen months earlier, but the fact and the timing of what it solves, that it probably would have been a negative in the eyes of most people, no matter how great the class would have been or how big the numbers would have been, people would have looked at that hole at the quarterback position and said, yeah, but. And now, if he does join the class, it just solidifies once again, I want to point out what this staff has been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Marcus Freeman was still interviewing people in March. Like, the staff was not complete. We're talking about a 23 class that was not where the staff was not complete until like March. And here we are. They're sitting where they sit, and they're able to come away with their quarterback amidst all of the ups and downs of the effect of the situation with Dante Moore. So it is almost triple the feeling at this point. Like, it is opening up the cereal box and you have a toy inside, but you get the toy that you wanted.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
good comparison.
Yeah, it's like you open the box, it's a toy inside, but it's like, oh, it's this toy.
like your Happy Meal, man. You're like, can I come back for a different toy?
Yes, right. You take it back up front, like, man, can I get the? Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, man, it's the fan base should be able to, as we did, kind of exhale, like,
yep,
man, for a minute there, I didn't know how this was going to end up going, but now,
Sean, I was pretty confident for the longest time that Notre Dame was going to get a quarterback in the 2023 class. I really was, but I'd be lying to everyone if I didn't say there was like a 1 to 2 day span about 2 weeks ago where I was like, man, like, I don't know about this one. Like, this is not looking great. And then all of a sudden, I mean, they flipped it real quick though, right? I was like, okay, they're in now in good spot with Kenny Minchey. So they really did flip the script there.
Yeah.
And again, we think that this one's going to be over pretty soon here, but it's good. It's relieving. I think the word is relief for me.
Yes, because it was something that was going to be questioned, asked, and we were going to have to, unfortunately, write about it and discuss it. And now, hopefully, that's something we can erase.
Yes.
Off the board. Yes. Like, we don't have to discuss that. We don't have to write about that.
And you know what, Sean? I really liked Kenny Minchey's junior film. I thought there was a lot of good stuff, but I would not be lying if I watched his senior film. I'm like, oh, this is a different cat, man. It's a different cat. Looks great.
Lost his mind, Ryan.
Yeah.
We saw his senior film and he just flat out lost his mind. Like, oh my.
He's ranked. He's ranked pretty much consistently in like the top 250, like 240s, like that type of situation. He is a top 100 kid, in my opinion, man. He's a really, really good player. And I think he's better than a couple guys that Notre Dame has been after outside of him. I'll just leave it at that, right? Like, I'm not going to open up that can of worms, but he's a very, very talented quarterback. I am a fan of Kenny Minchey. Yes.
I tell people all the time, anytime you make the Elite 11 as a quarterback, usually 6 of the 11 end up being really good college quarterbacks. And quarterbacking can go to the school you go to, the coaching. There's a lot of things that play into that. But for the most part, if you make it to that camp and that competition, you're going to be okay on the college level. I mean, historically, it's been like that. You go back and look at those 11 quarterbacks through the years. And, of course, injuries play a part in anything. And just the fact that he went out there, his performance and, being the accuracy leader, on a couple of days. All of those things, you start to hear about his performance. And he might not have the big name, but he competed. And he turned a lot of heads. He turned a lot nationally. A lot of people that might not have known about him saw his performance at the Elite 11, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing, Sean, is that if people think, oh, you guys are just a couple of biased Notre Dame guys, right? The first guy that I heard talk really seriously about Kenny Minchey, I mean, Brian had mentioned him before that, but John Garcia, who covers recruiting from a national perspective, he was the one that came on the show and was like, "Oh, Kenny's good, man. Like he's a really, because he saw him at the Elite 11, like Malik did, right?"
Yeah.
So, and he's not a Notre Dame guy. He's impartial. He's just a recruiting guy. And I just, again, if anybody hasn't seen Kenny Minchey's senior highlights, just go to Kenny Minchey Huddle on Google, and it'll be the first thing that pops up. Really, really good film as a senior, man. Like he was limited due to an injury to his shoulder that we were told it's not like a long-term serious thing. It's not. But man, he actually came back later in the season and played in a playoff game despite having that injury during the season. He looked phenomenal this year. So if Notre Dame's able to finish that one out, which we believe that they will, big time get for them. So that'll be 24. The next step, Sean, is that Notre Dame does want a 5th offensive lineman in the class. Okay. And I got to throw a bone out real quick to Brandon Plesner. He said, bro, I was talking about Minchey long before John Garcia. All right, Brandon, we give you the credit, sir. A long-time listener. Give it to you. Man, yes. So, yes, Brandon, we'll give you that credit, sir. We'll give you the credit, all right? We'll give you the credit. We will. I have no problem sharing the love on this podcast.
At all.
So, 5th offensive lineman, Sean. Notre Dame had Elijah Page committed in the class. He decommits a couple months ago. He's now committed to the University of Southern California to hang out with your daughter, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what happens out there.
No, just to watch us crush the building this weekend.
Yes. Love it, Sean. Love it. So
Notre Dame. Cute story. So
yes,
we're doing the post-game show Saturday. My daughter texts me. She's headed to the game. Right, so they're driving, and it's funny because she has on. I don't know if you guys saw the game, but if you saw the game, you looked in the stands. I actually think the shirts are dope. They have like a FUCLA shirt in the USC colors. And the script is really dope. It's a dope T-shirt, and my daughter has one. Right, so I'm like, "Do you have on your shirt?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, enjoy the game." Like always, like a dad, enjoy the game, be safe, and, enjoy that cute football. I said, because it's about to get ugly next week. Just letting you know. And she sends back the crying emoji because she knows. Like, she chose that school, but she knows the foundation of what she grew up in. She knows what's coming. She understands the physicality that's walking in the Coliseum next week. She knows. That's why she sent that emoji back like, oh, boy. Yeah, enjoy that cute football, that tag football you're playing with UCLA tonight. Enjoy that. That's not what's happening next weekend.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I might have to post this picture again. We just had US MA87 said, Sean, did you see the post Ryan had on Twitter with you in the USC gear?
It was fantastic. And I told Ryan, I was like, do it. Absolutely do it. Yeah, I feel my skin is thick. I can take jokes with the best of them. You grow up in my family, dude, you have no choice but to be able to take jokes. So I loved it. I retweeted it. I liked it. Absolutely.
You did. Now, you're a good sport with it, man. You're a good sport with it. Some people do not like that kind of ruffling of the feathers, but you took it like a champ. You took it like a champ. I mean, we were both athletes, right? So, like, we joke around, man. That's how it works. That's how it works.
Why wouldn't I take a joke? Heck, my money goes there. So
yeah, true. It's very true. Yeah, you paid for that. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
I wish that bill was a joke every month.
Yeah, true. Well, and I mean, so, kind of getting back on the rails a little bit, Sean. Elijah Page going out to USC, decommits from the class. You're still left with 4 very talented offensive linemen. Charles Jagasaw, who had a fantastic senior year. Sullivan Absher, who also had a very good senior year. Sam Pendleton had a nice senior year. Joe Otting had a nice senior year. You have a nice 4-man class. There's no doubt about it. But then the questions turn to, hey, who's the left tackle in the class? Well, now I contend that the left tackle in the class was already in the class. It's Charles Jagasaw, in my opinion. So I think Notre Dame is now just circling in on the last offensive lineman that they like. And I trust in Harry Heastand's evaluation of offensive linemen. I do.
Yeah.
So the player, and this is no new news here, right? But this player that they really want in the class is a guy that you're familiar with, Illinois product, Christopher Terrick, who is Glenbard South, right? One of the Glenbards, So he just played in the state semifinals. Unfortunately, his team lost in the state semifinals, was one game away from the state championship. But still, he had a really nice senior year. 6'6", 295, much more of an interior offensive lineman than a offensive tackle at the next level, but still a very talented physical kid. And that's the guy that Notre Dame wants. Where is it with Christopher Terrick? This is where it is. And I just talked to Christopher pretty recently. He put everything on the back burner as far as recruiting and making those decisions, right? Committed to Wisconsin, but he wanted to finish out his senior year. Well, senior year is finished now, right? So there's going to be a decision that made whether it is sticking with the Wisconsin commitment or decommitting. And if he does decommit, I think Notre Dame has a very good chance to land Christopher Terrick. But the question is whether he's going to stick with Wisconsin or if he's not. But Sean, I know that you've seen a little bit of him. I've seen a bunch of them. He would be a really nice kid for Notre Dame because he's a physical, mauling offensive lineman. Gives me some like Alex Barrs vibes. I don't know if that's kind of what you see as well, but he's a really, really good football player. He is.
I'll roll with that comp. That's a really good comp. He is definitely, he is blocks away from Cam Williams, right? The Glenbard High School district, whether it's East, West, like they have 4 different schools in Glenbard, but they're all connected. Cam is very aware of him. He's very aware of Cam. Great player. And I think for him, what has made it interesting is at the time that Notre Dame really jumped in the picture, the Wisconsin program was in a state of flux.
Yes.
Right? And honestly, shout out to them and Coach Leonard being able to kind of right the ship and get them back in contention in the Big Ten West for a possible Big Ten title game. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. And I think we said, how Wisconsin handles the hiring situation, and whether or not they stick with Jim Leonard and the staff stays intact is going to play into his decision. But it's Notre Dame and Harry Hiestand, man. It's Notre Dame and Harry Hiestand. And someone asked me, I think this plays into it as well. Mm-hmm. Someone asked me with the Minchey situation, like, what is so attractive about Notre Dame for him to leave Pitt? And I'm like, maybe a real shot at a championship.
Good offensive line, nice running game.
It's like, okay, people want to throw Stanford and Marshall up. Like, oh yeah, that's fine.
I get it, man. I get it.
But over the next 4 years, like, which program is really realistically going to give you a chance to possibly be in the playoff? And it's very simple. And this is what is probably going to be weighed for him. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it's very similar, right? To Kenny Minchey, like, man, do I stick to my decision or do I kind of lean to where my heart is kind of telling me? It's almost a similar situation. And now, he's been able to hold it off because he's been focused on the season. But now, oh man, you can't hold it off any longer, right? Because you have a month to, filter through all of your emotions. Discuss it with the people you love, your parents. Ask questions of both staffs, and ultimately make the best decision for you. It's also. You can answer this for me. Mm-hmm. Offensive linemen. Do you think they look at the guys they come in with?
Yes.
From an offensive line standpoint, because that's the case. Because both schools have a good history of producing offensive linemen.
Yes.
So
I mean, because you talk about the names, Sean. I mean, we always talk about the Quentin Nelsons, Mike McGlinchey's, like all those dudes. But if you go over to Wisconsin, you're talking about the Joe Thomases, the Ryan Ramcheks, the Travis Fredericks. Like both teams do an incredible job of producing offensive linemen. You are correct.
Yeah. So that within itself for me is really what it boils down to with his decision. Like, ultimately, he's going to wake up probably late in the process, somewhere in the middle of December, and he's going to have a feel, for a staff or for the program or for the rest of the offensive linemen that he's coming into that whichever class with and have a relationship with, and then he's going to make his pick. And it wouldn't, honestly, with him, it wouldn't shock me if he chose either program. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me if he chose either program.
It wouldn't shock me either because obviously he's developed relationships with Wisconsin. I do think that Jim Leonard being the permanent head coach is big for the recruiting class, right? Like I think it's massive. So, I mean, I can see it going either way. I think that Notre Dame likes Christopher Terek. I feel pretty decent about where Notre Dame is, but again, it all comes down to if he's going to stick with his commitment. Like that's just all it comes down to. So we'll see. Christopher Terek is definitely a player that Notre Dame would like in the class. There's no doubt about it. He's a really talented football player, obviously. So that's number 2, though, Sean. So they would like a quarterback in the class. They would like an fifth offensive lineman. That now brings us to 25. There's 2 spots remaining. One player that I know they would definitely like to have is Caleb Smith, who is a wide receiver out of the state of Texas. Notre Dame already has 2 wide receivers in the state of Texas in the 2023 class. Jaden Greathouse, of course, Braylon James being the other, both extremely talented football players, top 100 players, in my opinion, in the 2023 class for different reasons. Caleb Smith is more of that explosive slot type after catch wide receiver who also has a little bit of juice to him. Talented player in his own right. Notre Dame was talking with Tayshawn Lyons earlier on in this process, obviously, a couple months ago. That seemed to be their 5th wide receiver they really wanted to target, but they have now seemed to be fully focused in on Caleb Smith. That's the guy they like in this class. Right or wrong, that's their guy, right? And I know we can talk about the Tayshawn Lyons versus Caleb Smith film, all that type of stuff, right? I really like Tayshawn Lyons as a football player. I still do.
I do too.
Caleb Smith is their guy. All right, that's who they want. We think that there's going to be some understanding of where that thing is going, in the future here. But obviously, he went to Notre Dame and visited a couple weeks ago. And before he did so, he decommitted from Texas Tech to make it an official visit to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Feel pretty good about where things are. But I think there is an internal conversation that he's having with himself of, hey, I developed relationships with Texas Tech. Do I just go back and stick with the process there? Do I go to Notre Dame and make that big leap of faith? There's a conversation piece, Sean, but he is an interesting player because I think he does bring a dynamic to the 2023 class that Notre Dame doesn't really have a wide receiver. They have a bunch of outside receivers, really talented receivers. They don't have a true slot type. They have Jaden Greathouse who could play some slot. They have Rico Flores who could play some slot. Dylan Edwards that could play some slot. But a true slot receiver, they are kind of missing. And I think Caleb Smith does fit that mold for them.
He fits that mold, like you said, run after the catch and special teams value. Another kid at that position that returns punts and does it well, returns kickoffs and does it well. He's just really good with the ball in his hands. And specifically talking about that, it's so funny, man, because you would think you get guys in the wide receiver room and just say, okay, you play this spot, this play, you play that spot, that play. And it just doesn't work that way. Right? You might have talented guys. There's a reason why, in my opinion, there's a reason why Ohio State has struggled a little bit. They have pockets where they explode, but the consistency is not the same. Why? Because that guy, everybody can't play that slot. And they had a first-round pick that consistently played that slot at a high level. And when he's missing, it affects everything else, right? So, like you said, getting a guy like that, please don't get it twisted. There was a reason Avery Davis was slotted to start. because he was the pure slot guy. And the
guys very important. Those guys are very important to quarterbacks, man. Yes. It's like a safety blanket. It's a really cliche thing, but he's that type of player. I mean, let's think about it, right? When Matt Stafford needs a big play in the passing game, he looks to Cooper Kupp, right? Like, think about this. When Buffalo a couple years ago, even when they had Stephon Diggs, who's a great football player, one of the top 2 or 3 receivers probably in the National Football League, on third downs, who were they looking to? Cole Beasley. That was their guy, right? And so that guy does matter in an offense in general, not just Notre Dame offense. Like, those guys matter. They do. And he brings something that Notre Dame doesn't have a lot of on the roster. Like, they have a couple guys that are bigger type slots. Dylan Edwards is going to be able to do some stuff in the slot. That's going to be a lot of really exciting things, but they don't really have that true slot type that is going to play a heavy dose like an Avery Davis on the roster outside of Avery. So, yeah. And Avery's, who knows? Is he going to be on the roster next year? Is he going to get the extra year of eligibility? Like, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with the slot position moving forward. So a guy like a Caleb Smith would be an interesting player to bring into the fold. So that would move the class, though, Sean, to 26 players if they're able to get him. All right. And apparently people are buzzing in the chat. Apparently Marcus Freeman said that Tyler Buckner could be available for the bowl game. So that's another conversation for another day. Awesome for Tyler, though. Fantastic to hear. So that's 26, though, Sean. There's one spot remaining potentially for sure. And that's going to go to an athlete in the 2023 class. There's a couple good options that are out there for Notre Dame that they like both players. One is Brandon Hillman, who is a Churchland High School in the state of Virginia. Bigger guy, 6'2", 200 plus pounds, plays option quarterback in high school, but also could play running back, could play maybe some wide receiver, could definitely play defensive back, safety, could definitely play rover. He could do all those types of things. So Hillman is that more physical athlete who's going to play a more physical brand of football. The other one is Khalil Barnes, who is so Khalil is out of the state of Georgia, Bogart, Georgia, and he is 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's more defensive back, wide receiver type. We think if he goes to Notre Dame, he's going to get a chance to play wide receiver, but he could also play defensive back at a pretty high level. So there's one spot definitely open, though, Sean. So it's going to be interesting to see if Notre Dame is stuck at 27. They can't push it to 28, and you have the option between Brandon Hillman, or you have the option between a Khalil Barnes, who's more of a true, corner wide receiver type. Who do you go after? Who's your guy? And I think that's an interesting debate, Sean, because I don't think there's a wrong answer, but it's definitely an interesting thing to kind of foresee.
Off the bat, because of stature, I liked Hillman, but I loved Hillman because of his defensive film. I'm not trying to get into, especially with Minchey on the cusp and Carr already in the fold. I know the young man's interested in possibly getting a shot at quarterback. And who knows? He could become great. Like, it's up to him, right? The young man puts in the work and proves himself, and oh well. But for me, the value from an athletic standpoint would then go to Barnes, because he can play defensive back, wide receiver. He can do a lot of different things at places that are needed more. So for me, Barnes jumped a little bit ahead of Hillman. I think Hillman can be really good in the secondary based upon what I've seen of his film. Might even be big enough to get up to rover at some point and play a little bit of rover. But, I just love, what Khalil could do offensively, defensively. Kind of reminds me probably of Xavier Watts, who I think at this point is safety. I'm glad they stayed with him as safety, because he's starting to, you can see him start to get it. And he's playing much faster, and he's flashing more. And, hopefully Barnes could be that type of guy with the athleticism that he has, that, you give him a year or two wherever you put him at, and then he starts to flash as he grows in the program. So I would take Barnes right now over Hillman, but it would be strictly because of, the needs I see on the roster, on the back end of the secondary, possibly, or somewhere else in the secondary, because I think the cornerback position is probably going to be pretty solid moving forward. But if you can get him at a nickel or the safety, I will be good with that. But just because I know what he is, if I'm bringing in Hillman and he really wants a shot at quarterback, but I have Minchey, it's like, now I'm wasting a year of your development only to tell you, look, you're third behind these guys or you're fourth behind these guys and Steve Angeli. But we're going to move you over to defense. Well, heck, we could have had this young man playing in one of those rooms from the start and developing. And that's the logistics of it is why I would choose Barnes.
Yeah. It would be fun, though. Hillman during the Navy week, Sean, playing some option quarterback.
That would be fantastic.
It really would. It really would. I wanted to answer a chat that we had real quick, Sean. CCC said, RR, which is me, Ryan Roberts, a little late for the show today. What are you drinking in that big orange cup? You're in fantasy land if you think Peyton Bowen is coming to Notre Dame. Wake up, buddy. CCC, Austin, Texas. Well, sir, for one, it's a red cup, so maybe your eyes aren't working very well for you today. Maybe some glasses might be in store for you. And all I just want to say is thank you so much for being in the chat, and I want to welcome you, sir, because you welcomed me to Fantasyland. So, in effect, I am going to welcome you now, sir, to Mr. Timeout Lands. Have a great day. And see you later. Bye, buddy. But, yeah. So, I'm sorry, man. I had to. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm salty, man. That just, it grinded my gears a little bit, man. I'm like, all right, you're out of here, buddy. You're out of here. So, yes. All right, moving on. So, Sean, we think there'll be one of two options. Ready? So they end up with a Brandon Hillman or a Khalil Barnes. Which one is which? I don't know what the ultimate decision is. I don't know what it's going to end up being. We'll see what happens. But again, maybe there's a world where they get stressed at the 28 and they would love to take all of those kids, I believe. Yeah. So that's where we are. That's what you should look forward to the rest of the 2023 class. We don't anticipate a Viper being on the board for Notre Dame right now. We think that transfer portal is the much more realistic option right now. So unless something drastically changes, that's what we're looking at right now for the 2023 class. Again, 27 is the number right now. Could be stressed to 28 depending on how things work out. But that's going to do it for this section of the recruiting podcast. So we're going to get into the mailbag here in a second. I already have 18 questions that I've started up, and I am still near the beginning of the show. So if you want to throw in some questions into the chat, we're talking recruiting. Oh, we can also talk regular football, college football, NFL, high school football, anything we're up for it, any sports. You want to throw in some Thanksgiving questions, man? Let's go for it, brother. We're ready for it. So before we get on to that, though, if you could please like this podcast, hit that share, hit that notification bell. Visit boards.irishbreakdown.com and sign up for the message board. Really appreciate you so much for joining the podcast today. This is going to do it, though, for this section of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. All right, Sean. So let us get into some questions. We had a super chat earlier in the show. I had a couple super chats, actually. So I'm going to go to this first one from SB. SB, thank you so much for the recruiting chat. Said, how important is a recruit's connection to other recruits and current players? Any stories of recruits Notre Dame was told by other recruits or current players to avoid? All right, Sean, let's just stick to the first part of that question, obviously. And thank you again, SB, for the super chat. How important do you think relationships are, Sean? I guess let's start there between recruits and current players.
I mean, relationships are a two-way street. It's pretty simple. You can have great relationships, and in that relationship, you can lie to the people that you have a great relationship with, right? You can go months of being brothers and to wake up one day and everything that you've told these brothers, all of a sudden you just changed your mind. They're left to feel like, what the heck? You know, you've recruited some of these brothers to join you. And then just without any sign or anything for them to feel like, oh, I can see this coming, they get blindsided. So, it's a relationship. Like I said, that's recruiting. The relationships are there. The relationship in the class is very strong for the class of 2023. That's one of the things I like about the class. And it's one of the vibes that they continue to have, which is points to what we said about the Minchey visit this weekend. It was just smooth and easygoing, and it didn't feel like other guys that were coming in as recruits that they had to kind of like fill out and see how they were. He blended in just like one of the guys, and that's because I think he came in with a certain mindset, and that made the mesh possible. So yeah, look, man, recruiting and relationships and recruiting are a two-way street. Like I said, guys can give you months of, man, I'm coming. Hey guys, we're brothers, and then one day they wake up and they choose to go somewhere else.
Yep.
So now, relationships matter, but ultimately relationships aren't the determining factor.
They're not. They definitely matter, though. I would say not only with current players, but coaches also is like a big thing. And I know you hit on a little bit of everything, Sean, but yes, I mean, it matters, SB, for sure. Any stories of recruits Notre Dame was told by the other recruiter, current player, to avoid. That's interesting. I would rather keep that to the message board. I actually do have a great story that maybe I could tell in the future about a recruit that I was, Notre Dame was kind of told to avoid, but we'll keep that to a message board.
Just in general.
Yeah.
Guys will flat out ask another recruit, like, dude, are you coming?
Right.
What's up?
Absolutely.
And sometimes recruits would tell them, like, nah.
No.
Visit. They'll be honest and say no. And then, you let your coaches know, like, hey, don't waste any more time. I mean, just generally speaking, that's the type of stuff that I know for sure happens on recruiting visits. And, yeah.
All right. So we have now another super chat, Sean. We had a few super chats. SB, thank you again for the question. We had Milton Fan who gave us a super sticker. Milton Fan, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I know you're in the chat every day, so appreciate you for participating in the channel and in the chat, sir. Thank you so much. We're going to go to Raymond Harton, with the super chat. Thank you so much, Raymond. Hey guys, do you see anyone that we are recruiting that looks like Jordan Davis out of Georgia, or maybe in the realm of the talent, size, and ability? Ray, that's a great question. So, I mean, first and foremost, Jordan Davis he's an outlier in a different reason, right? Like usually when people say the word outlier, they're talking about a guy that's an anomaly, that is maybe smaller than you technically would want, right? Maybe speed is a little deficient. He's an outlier the other way because he is a 6'6 plus 340 plus pound guy that wears the weight exceptionally well and runs in the 4.7s. Like you just don't find guys that well. But to the size profile conversation of Jordan Davis in the 2023 class, no, they don't really have a guy of that size. I think that long-term, Brendan Vernon could be 6'5 and 305. Like I think he could be that type of dude. So no, not him either. I would say the biggest guy weight-wise that would probably be in the class is most likely at this point. I would say Devin Houston maybe could be like a 310, 315 guy ultimately, but even he's obviously not in the same realm from a size perspective. I think when you're talking about the 2024 class now, Notre Dame is recruiting Justin Scott, who a lot of people know about out of the state of Illinois. He is listed at 6'5 and some change and 300-something pounds right now, and he is an incredibly skinny like 310 pounds, 305 pounds. So he could be a kid that is legitimately 6'5 plus 330 pounds into the future. And I know Sean spends a lot of time, has talked to Justin Scott a ton in the past, and he's a player that, again, 6'5", 330, I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. Sean basically is asking if there's a Jordan Davis clone potentially for Notre Dame in the next couple classes. And I just said, like, maybe Justin Scott, if Notre Dame lands him, could be that 6'5", 330 dude. Like, that's possible. But, I mean, that's not really what Notre Dame looks for. But he could be one of those guys that is, like, close to that size profile.
That's really unfair. I don't know if God made another Jordan Davis. I just don't.
Dude, Jordan Davis was 6'6", 340 something at the combine, Sean, ran in the 4.7s. And not many people know about this. The year before, he was 360 pounds. Like, he had lost 20 pounds. He is a massive human being, man.
And just look, I think he got hurt. At the time he got injured, the Eagles' rush defense was giving up like 3.1 yards per carry. Yep. Or like 2.9 or something like ridiculous. They were like top 3. And since he's been out, it's a totally different story.
Yes, it is.
So that just shows you the impact of a guy like that. I agree. Notre Dame needs guys like that.
Every school needs guys like that. But
absolutely. Yes, isn't size-wise, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to get up to 330, 340.
Yeah.
So he's the type that wants to be able to, he fell in love with playing some end this year, because teams are doing certain things to him on the interior, like running away from him to take him out of the game. So they just moved him to the end. He was able to rush more and be more effective in different ways. And he's that athletic. So I don't see him putting on that much weight. But with him, he took some visits, and I think he went to some places that he never got a chance to go to. He had been to Notre Dame a couple of times, so he didn't get to a game day. And then, you have other schools jumping in now on his recruitment. So it's going to be a battle, but Notre Dame's right there in the mix.
Yep.
They're right there in the mix. And, they're going to have to go ahead. They're in the mix because of the other question. They're in the mix because of the relationship. Like, he talks to Cam Williams like all the time. And it's not even about like football. Like, that's their relationship. Like, they just talk about life, darn it, every day. What's going on? What's up? So that relationship could yield him possibly ending up at Notre Dame, but it won't be the determining factor. The staff is going to have to put in that work. Al Washington, you're on the clock.
I mean, because Sean, we're going to call out when mistakes are probably made a little bit, right? Notre Dame was a little late on Justin Scott. They were. Yep. They were a little late on him. They were. But it's yeah. We'll see how everything turns out. But to your point, it's going to be a battle. It is. Italian Domer, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Said, is it realistic Notre Dame is going to be able to use the transfer portal? Everything I've seen is administration is not amendable to non-grad transfers. So, Sean, you want to take a first crack at this? I have some thoughts.
I don't think Brandon Joseph wasn't a non-grad.
He wasn't a non-grad, which apparently some of the backstory is that Notre Dame had a little bit trouble getting that one cleared because he wasn't a graduate transfer.
Right. That is, you know what? I might as well go ahead and throw this in right here. Okay. What makes everything in life great is that when you choose something, you have to give up something.
Okay.
And one of the beautiful things about Notre Dame is the fact that it has a standard. It has a standard that academically is above what other schools at the top of the football landscape might be willing to go. And they've been consistent in showing that they're not willing to lower that standard.
Yep.
Every now and then they will. Brandon Joseph is an example. I think the fact that he came from an institution like Northwestern helped in them saying, okay, we can modify it a little bit and allow this. But as a fan, when I chose to be a fan of Notre Dame, I knew what I was getting into.
Yep.
See, I chose the independence. I chose the uniqueness. I was drawn to them spitting in the face of conference alignment and saying, no, we don't have to do that to be successful financially. And we don't have to do that to be successful on the football field. It's everything that makes me feel pride as a Notre Dame fan. So when things change like NIL, or when things change like the transfer portal, and Notre Dame continues to be unique, I can't then be upset about the uniqueness of Notre Dame.
100%. Yep.
They are who they are. That's why you love them. We don't get to pick and choose when we love who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You love who they are every day.
Yep.
Not because situations change or NIL has changed. No. I love Notre Dame for taking a stance that we're going to be different in the NIL space. We're not about to jump in feet first. We're going to stand back and watch how this plays out, because we suspect that the initial charge is going to implode in the faces of some of these universities. And it has. They were correct. Some smart people at the University of Notre Dame.
Yep.
They can see, you know what? Let's just wait a little bit. And as far as transfer portal, look, that's the standard. Things change. They go get a Chris Smith from Harvard. Like, you see the kids that are going to be able to come to Notre Dame, where they're coming from is going to be very important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I don't think we're going to see someone coming from Florida State to Notre Dame.
Right.
As a non-grad. I
Yep.
don't. Could we see, I'm just throwing this out there. There's a really good freshman running back at Cal. Notre Dame, very well-respected academic institutions.
Yep.
Could he come? It would help since he went to Cal, right? If there was someone at Stanford, it would help that they went to Stanford, right? So that's basically what we're talking about, and that's what we're looking at. It's not the fact moving forward that non-grads won't be considered, but I think it's going to be very important where they're coming from an academic standpoint.
For sure.
You know, Notre Dame is not about to just lay down its uniqueness and its standard. You know, they've been consistent with that. Mm-hmm. And we know that as a fan base. So as frustrating as that might be, hey, it is what it is, you know? And if that's the thing that's going to make you like fall out of love with Notre Dame, like, I don't know what else to tell you, because
I mean, and Sean, to be fair, Notre Dame has been active in the portal to a degree. I mean, they just got Brandon Joseph, they got Chris Smith, they got John Sott, they got Blake Grupe. Like, they just had a few guys in the last portal. I think, to your point, though, it's going to be a lot easier to get graduate transfers than non-grads, right? Like, it's going to be, because there's standards that need to be withheld. There's academic tracks. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that decision, which is what made it a little bit difficult for Brandon Joseph, but ultimately they figured it out. And I think that there is going to be a lot more help from the academic side of things to assist with some of these transfer options, because I do think that Notre Dame is going to go after a quarterback transfer. Believe that wholeheartedly. I think they're going to go after a wide receiver transfer in this offseason. I think they're going to go after a defensive end transfer. So I think Notre Dame will be active in the portal. It's just about finding the right fits, right? Like, that's where we are right now. But
now if they're a graduate,
then it's full game.
That opens up the pool. I think if you're dealing with non-grads, the pool is a little bit smaller.
Yes, agreed.
Grads, now you're opening up the pool a little bit more to guys that will be able to come in. And look, they're going to be active. They were the first ones to call Keaton Slovis.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first schools. Like, they recognized that an upgrade at the position might be something they needed. You know, they didn't want to go into the season with 2 first-time starters.
Yeah.
So I fully expect them, like you said, at those positions you mentioned, to be very active.
No doubt. I think they will be very active. There's no doubt about it. And Italian Domer, thank you again for the super chat. Wanted to go to Paul with another super chat. Paul, thank you so much. Ryan, is there any chance we can officially change timeout to pancakes served? A lot of us in the chat really enjoy pancakes. Go Irish. I also enjoy pancakes, Sean. I
do too. I'm a blueberry guy.
Blueberry? All right, blueberry. Yeah. I can do chocolate chip. There's a lot of different types of pancakes. But yeah, pancakes are delicious. But Paul, I will petition StreamYard to let us change the name of it, okay? Just for you, sir. But I appreciate the super chat very much. Going to go to Brian Hockney. Are the Irish still offering once committed to Notre Dame baseball player Ryan Mooney, a preferred walk-on at wide receiver? Yes, Brian. Yep. They have offered him as a preferred walk-on. He's a talented kid, 6'4", 180 pounds, still raw to the game of football. He's only been playing now. I think this is his second year playing football. Like you said, he was committed to Notre Dame as a baseball player, but is now looking at different avenues from a football perspective. I think he likes Notre Dame. Obviously, he was committed to them at one point for a different sport. We'll see what happens, but he's rumored, Sean, to be a 6'4", 180-pound kid that can run in the high 4.2s, low 4.3s. So it's a good athlete. Again, back to my conversation piece about guys like Luke Tolick and, Jordan Faison out of the state of Florida. Notre Dame's targeting some really talented preferred walk-ons. They are. So, yes, they are still in conversations with Ryan Mooney, to my knowledge. All right. Sean, I want you to talk about this one for a second. From IL_Irish82. What about Drake Bowen's stat line? That was insane. Sean, again, I said it was 358 yards, 5 touchdowns, I think, in the state semifinal. Pretty good day. Not bad.
I would like to apologize to Bishop Lors. We sent Drake there to your home stadium. Or, well, not your home stadium, but his home stadium. We allowed him to walk on that field. And we didn't think he would mistreat you like that. We're sorry for that. And we apologize for any bruises or tracks that were left over the chest of certain defenders. But he's on to another state championship of the RCA Dome. That's why he came back. 2 straight in baseball, 2 straight in football. He's 1 game away. And he's become more dominant the deeper they've gotten to the playoffs. He's basically put this team on his back on both sides of the ball. And it's like, let's go get it done. So, look, I saw the stat line. I was supposed to go to the game. Brian and I were talking about going. Like, oh, let's meet up there. And then I looked at the calendar and was like, I'm not going to be able to do it. Birthdays all weekend for me and my family. So it's not going to work. But, yeah, when I saw the first half stat line that was posted, I was like, what in the world is he on tonight? Yeah, what I call it the RCA Dome. I'm sorry, it's not the RCA Dome. Where the Colts play. Excuse me, I've drawn a blank now. It's not the RCA Dome. That is super old school. That is super old school.
Coles Stadium. Let's do a quick Google. Oh, Lucas Oil. I should know that. That's what, I literally have been at Lucas Oil for the combine in the past. I should have known that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've been there recently in the last few years for a Big Ten championship game, so I should have known. Yeah. But no, it is. He's just look. You talk about gap closers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stand on this. Like people get stuck. And losing Keon Keeley and losing Dante Moore, and they get stuck on stars and all that stuff. Benjamin Morrison's a gap closer. Nobody was touting him as, oh my God, you got to have this guy. Yep. Drake Bowen's he's a gap closer. And I'm not just talking about leadership. Like this dude, Ryan, you talk about diversity.
Yeah.
What about getting him in the linebacker room? You think he could play multiple positions in the linebacker room?
Think he could play all three. I do. I do think he can play all three. He even talked to me, Sean, about like that he might be a Viper long term. I'm like, oh,
yeah, yeah, because he has a body, he has the length and a body type to where he can add or he can stream.
Yeah,
like whatever Matt Balis wants to do, he can build them however he needs to build them, and he can just go play. Length. Speed, he can come off the edge. He can pass rush in certain situations. Look,
I think that's 4 straight games with over 200 yards rushing. I think for Drake as well.
Yeah, and this is the thing. It's inside. He's not. This is straight inside run, just physical inside run, just wear you down, break you down, and that's what he's been doing and getting stronger with each game.
Oh, I know. That's the thing, man, is that he's playing his best football right now down the stretch of the season. Quick stats for you all. I know everyone loves stats. I do too. 1,600 plus yards now on the season for Drake Bowen, 7.8 yards a carry, 26 touchdowns. He also has 9 catches for 216 yards and 3 touchdowns. By the way, I'm not reading off a stat sheet right now. I've just written these numbers down so much that I have them memorized now. 137 total tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. That's Drake Bowen this year. It is wild, man. Yeah. And Pat Clax has had a great season for them as well, wide receiver 2024 kid. So he's very good football player, man. Drake is a baller.
Is it safe to say Drake has been one of the quiet recruits? Like we talked about the exploits week to week of the 23 recruits, and we focused on a lot of other guys.
Yep.
And Drake is just quietly just had another monster season.
Every week, man. Every week. He's a very like he's confident, but he's also a very like modest kid, like he's not going to boast about himself. He's just he just likes playing football. He just likes playing sports. It's awesome to see. Yeah. 99 probably came one just said, so you're saying Drake is due to drop in the rankings? Yes, he will. He will.
Yeah. He probably will. He has a lack of speed from what I'm
That's so stupid. It's one of the most absurd things ever. Oh gosh. I just don't understand what some people are doing with these rankings, man. It's just wild. We had Salty Virginia Peanuts said, Ryan, what feats of athletic prowess did the great one, Shane Greathouse, of course, execute in last Friday's area round playoff game against New Braunfels? So, Salty, I did write he was a part of the weekend roundup for the commits this past week. Sean, only 3 catches for 40 yards. They had a tough time throwing the football. I think their quarterback was like 10 of 29 passing, but my man had 39-yard punt return touchdown. And he also completed his only pass of the day for a 23-yard touchdown. Can I say this? Not a hot take. Shane Greathouse is just a really good football player, man. Like, whatever role you need him to play, he can play it. Like, he's going to block. He's going to run good routes. He's going to be physical. He's going to return punts if you need him to. Like, just a good football player, man. Like, it's just, yeah. Even in a day where he doesn't stuff the stat sheets from a receiving perspective, he still does what he needs to do to win the football game. 52 straight wins now, by the way, for Westlake.
All right. I mean, that's par for the course with this dude.
That's all it is, man. I mean, what else are we going to say? Every single week, Jaden Greathouse does something to win the football game. Like, it's just what he does. And they dominated that football game, but, games are going to get tougher down the stretch here, obviously, in the playoffs. So, see how it works out. Christopher Galloway just said, good morning, IB Nation. Hit the like button. I agree. We almost have 700 people in here. Hit that like button real quick. It's free. It's for free. We had Archer ask, Sean, I don't know if you saw my tweet yesterday. By the way, Brian, on this tweet that I put out, he ratioed me, by the way. So I put out a tweet yesterday. It said, basically, if Jeff Saturday could be a head coach in the NFL, then I could be a GM. Like, I can, right? I have the opportunity. So Archer said, how is the NFL GM gig search coming along, Ryan? So Archer, just saying, man, there's a couple of GMs that I do, and I'm not usually this person that's like, I could do better than that guy. But, like, there's a couple of GMs that I'm like, maybe it could be, at least at drafting football players. I'm not saying that I could, like, handle a cap with some of these guys. Like those guys are way above my league from the numbers perspective. But there's a couple guys that I do think I could draft better than. There is, but we'll probably never see that. But it is what it is. We had a lot of comments now coming in. Dennis Reardon said, so looking forward to signing day to be done with all the nonsense for this year anyway. Sean, I know we've echoed this in the past, man, but we'll be happy when we get some closure on this class just for a minute.
I mean, it's fun. It'll be fun to see how it plays out because this will be both of our first experiences with signing day and the madness in the weeks before. But look, like I said, there's a lot to be grateful and thankful for when it comes to what has been done.
Yes.
Right? And that is not sweeping under the rug some of the negatives. Go ahead.
It's always going to be negatives, though. Always going to be negatives.
Include that. Include the negatives. There's still a lot to be thankful and grateful for.
Yep. There's always a negative, man. It's never as good as you think. It's never as bad as you think. And there's a lot to be grateful for. You are very right, Sean. As we get ready for a Thanksgiving feast. We had from Antoine Porsche Radeau says, question, do you all think Brandon Joseph might come back and team up with Bowen from Texas? That's Peyton Bowen, of course, in the starting lineup next year. Sean, I'm interested to see the decision that Brandon Joseph makes because I think that he for sure will get drafted in the middle rounds as long as health kind of checks out because he's dealing with an injury right now. But I kind of feel like he may be better served coming back for another year, and that's not me being. I don't think that's me being selfish as a Notre Dame guy, right? Like I do think that he could still play better football than what we've seen this year from Brandon Joseph.
I agree. And no, Brandon Joseph is not taking time off. He's not pulling a Kyle Hamilton. He's actually.
I saw someone say that.
He's fighting to get back.
Yes. He
wanted to be back this week. Wasn't ready. Hopefully he'll get back for the USC game and play in the bowl game. So
all I'll say is this, Sean, about Brandon Joseph. I know there's people throwing that comp out there or whatever. Man. If you would have seen Brandon Joseph getting everyone pumped up before the Syracuse game, this guy brings an energy to this program that is it's a little different. So yes, I don't think that he is playing through. Yeah, I don't think that he is using an injury as a way to get out of playing football. Like I do think that he is trying to get back as quick as he can. I do. So yes, thank you for putting that little tidbit in though. It would be interesting though, if he does come back next year with a Peyton Bowen, with the rest of the safety room, could be really interesting, man. Really interesting. All right. You got a mailbag question from Irish Blooded. Question. Answer this. Recruiting at X position is why Notre Dame wins a championship next year, Sean. Recruiting at this position is why Notre Dame wins a championship next year.
See, that's, because the easy answer for most people will be one position.
Yes.
Does it have to be strictly recruiting or can it be transfer portal?
It can be transfer portal. I'll open it up. I'll allow it.
Okay, cool. Because from a recruiting standpoint, next year, impact, I'm going to say transfer portal.
Okay.
And I'm going to say defensive end.
Interesting.
Or I'll just say impact defensive lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Transfer portal. Or I could say quarterback transfer portal.
Huh.
But from a recruiting standpoint, you know what? I'm going to stick to the question. Recruiting at this position is why Notre Dame wins a championship next year. I'm going to say wide receiver.
I was going to say the same thing, Sean. We're on the same wavelength on that one. Yeah. Because I think, so this is what I think, right? Notre Dame, I think, will have a couple options of transfer quarterbacks that'll be good players, right? I think that if Also, Tyler Buckner can get back healthy and stay healthy. I think he still has developmental potential to be a really good player. You have Kenny Minchey coming in the 2023 class. So I think you'll have some options at quarterback. Are you going to find like a generational type of quarterback in the transfer portal? Probably not, or else they wouldn't be transferring. But I think you can find a good player. And I think the wide receiver class is one that could take you over the top. Right? Like it replenish that room, I think, can make a quarterback go from a good player to a very good player, from a very good player to a great player. So I think that could be the difference. I do.
I agree with you. I'm so stuck on how good the safety position can be that I started to lean that way. But then I said to myself, you know what? Those guys are probably going to. Oh, no. I can look. Let's look at this a different way. Wait a minute. Okay, because the question, Irish Blooded did not say recruiting in the 23 class. He didn't say that.
He did not. That's a good point. Oh, good catch.
I'll go to 22 linebacker core. That's what I'll go with.
Interesting. Wasn't expecting that. I thought you were going to say 24 quarter. Oh, okay.
The 22 linebackers will be the difference in winning a championship next year.
That's interesting. Huh. I'll have to chew on that one more. Irish Blood, that's a really good question, though. We appreciate it.
It is.
Archer has to come in with this nonsense. Sean. Ryan, Daniel Jones has more rushing touchdowns this year than Alvin Kamara, Leonard Fournette, Najee Harris, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray. Is Daniel a top 5 running back in the league? No, he might be a top 5 running quarterback in the league, but he is not a top 5 running back in the league.
Is Daniel Jones even a top 5 New York Giant?
Oh, no. Just in a vacuum? No. I mean, let's think about that, right? Andrew Thomas is probably the best player on their offense, right? Well, him as Saquon. You can have the conversation piece. Those two. Defensively, Leonard Williams is still a good player. Jimmy Love's had a good season so far, man. He's had a really good season so far. Yeah.
How has the first round pick been?
Evan Neal? I think he's Evan Neal. Yeah. Or you mean Kayvon Thibodeau? Who are you talking about? I think Thibodeau has been playing, but he has been a little quiet. I think Evan Neal's been banged up, if I remember correctly. So, yeah. That team doesn't have a lot of stars now that I think about it, though. Literally, stars on that roster are Saquon, Andrew Thomas, if we want to count an offensive lineman as a star, I'll allow it. And then Leonard Williams, I guess, defensively. Otherwise, just a bunch of solid players. But, yeah, it's interesting. Yep, someone just said Neal was hurt. Yep, I thought he was hurt. I'm pretty sure he didn't play last game. I wasn't intently watching it, but it was on the TV. All right, we have Antoine Porcher Rideau again. Said, hey, Ryan, does Notre Dame still have a shot at Kyle Hamilton's cousin, Peyton Woodyard from California? Yes, I think they still do, Antoine. I know people were freaking out because someone put in a future cast for Georgia, I think, a couple days ago. Look, I don't think Peyton Woodyard is anywhere close from making a final decision. I've talked about this. I think that Notre Dame had the inside track, but it wasn't like a foregone conclusion that it would be Notre Dame. They have to battle. I mean, the kid is a top 30 type of player in the 2024 class. Like, there's going to be a lot of SEC schools, a lot of Pac-12 schools, a lot of schools just in general that are going to be in on Peyton Woodyard and are in on Peyton Woodyard. So do I think Notre Dame still has a chance? Yeah, I do. Do I still think they're in a solid spot? Yeah, I also do. Do I think that they're the favorite? No, but I also don't really think there's a favorite. I think the Georgia future cast is very premature. I do. I wouldn't say they're the favorite. I wouldn't. Are they in the running? For sure. No doubt. But I think it's still way too early to figure that one out. All right. Let's go to this one. Sean, I'll throw this one to you first. Mailbag from Archer. If Ohio State and Notre Dame both win big and Georgia TCU win out, who gets the 4th spot in the playoff?
Shoot. So basically you're saying Georgia, TCU, and Ohio State would be in.
Yes, they would be in, no doubt.
Michigan
The question is,
Michigan will be a one-loss team.
yep.
Tennessee knocked themselves out of it.
Yep.
Clemson could possibly be a one-loss ACC championship team.
Mm-hmm.
So they would be in the conversation.
And USC would be in the conversation. But, well, no, Notre Dame would win out. So USC would be out too.
USC would be a two-loss possible Pac-12 champion.
Correct. And then if Georgia wins out, that also means that LSU loses. So they would be a three-loss team. They would be out of the picture as well.
Right.
Clemson, I think, right?
Clemson.
Like just off the top of my head, I think it's Clemson.
Yeah. A one-loss Clemson team as a conference championship. And that probably would tick Notre Dame fans off to see that.
It would. Yes, it would.
But yeah.
Here's a question. A one-loss Clemson team, Sean, or a Michigan team that has one loss that loses a close one to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship?
First of all, this is the wrong week to be asking me about Michigan. Okay.
I'm sorry.
So
that was a trash last drive, man.
I'm not emotionally equipped to be fair when it comes to Michigan because I don't really respect. They haven't shown me anything. Yeah. I think their only opportunity will be against Ohio State. And I actually think it's going to end up being a decent game.
Yeah.
I do, because I think both teams are kind of not. Ohio State has the better quarterback. That's clear.
It's substantial.
So, but no, Clemson, right? It has to be Clemson.
I'm sorry. I misspoke, by the way. It wouldn't be the Big Ten championship game. That's my bad, Archer. The Ohio State Michigan's playing this week, obviously. I mean, if it's a close game, and yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, like people in the chat are talking about, the Michigan schedule has been a joke, man. So, and as much as you talk about Clemson and how bad they got beat by Notre Dame, they would be a one-loss team with a ranked victory over North Carolina and a conference champion.
Yep. I think it's Clemson. Yeah. Man, this past weekend of games was madness, wasn't it? It was some madness happening, man. Sean, by the way, I have a person that tags me almost every week, a different person, by the way, not the same person, every week that say, Ryan, what are your thoughts on Devin Witherspoon from Illinois? And every week I have to say, dude, what do you want me to say about it? He's a fantastic player.
Remember that guy in the chat like a couple weeks ago that told us that the Illinois defense wasn't real because they haven't played anybody? Yeah, and he told us, trust your eyes. You watch Michigan play, you could tell that they're much better than Illinois. I'm like, okay. All right.
Yeah, I ignored that guy a lot, man. I mean, yes.
It's just, look, football is so much about, it's about talent, but it's about styles. And anybody that watched football could tell you that Michigan wants to be physical, and they weren't about to push Illinois around. If you watch Illinois, man, Witherspoon basically, look, he can cover. He's physical.
Yeah, he is.
He tackles. And dude, when I heard whoever was calling the game was like, yeah, he's going to be a great second-day pick. I'm like, all right, please let him slip. Please, because the Bears need him in the second round. It's like,
I think, and like we need to start giving Illinois the credit defensively, because that was an absurd comment a couple weeks ago that they're not really that good. They just haven't played anybody. I mean, literally, Sean, they have 3 defensive backs that have been invited to the Senior Bowl, by the way. 3 in the same secondary. That's not counting whoever the free safety is. He's a senior. I forget his name.
Oh, yeah, number 7. I forget his name as well.
Yeah, so he's a good player as well. Yeah. But Sidney Brown, Devin Witherspoon, and Martin have all been invited to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Both defensive tackles, Jerzon Newton and Keith Randolph, could probably be good enough to leave right now for the draft and get drafted next year. And that's not even mentioning guys like Tariq Barnes, who's a solid linebacker on the second level, a couple young edge defenders that are good football players. Illinois' defense is legit. It is. And if they had a really good quarterback, they would be a really good team. But they do not have a really good quarterback. They have a really good running back, a good offensive line, and that's pretty much it. But it's fine. I mean,
a good
lot of
OC
talent.
would help too.
Well, yes. But I mean, they should have won that football game, though, man. There was
Yes, man.
so much.
First down at the Michigan 37, up 7 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Not
you
great,
run the
man.
ball down their throats and you want to go pass happy.
Yep. Wasn't great, man. Wasn't great. We had Ryan Loftus has just asked, is John Sotz retainable? No, he's in his last year of eligibility, Ryan. So we will not have John Sott next year at Notre Dame. We had Milton Fan ask, Mailbag, do all scholarship players get 100% full scholarship? For football, if they are offered a full scholarship, they will have 100%. Yes. It's other sports like baseball, I think, is one that only does partial scholarships. But yes, football is 100%. Just wanted to knock that one out as well. Keith Wagland asks, of Barnes, that's Khalil Barnes, Brandon Hillman, Caleb Smith, and Christopher Tarrick, which one do you feel best about committing to Notre Dame?
That's a slick little question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Very slick. I kind of do want to rank these, Sean. We'll rank these in order of one. So one is the most likely, and then we'll go down to 4, which is the least likely. Mm-hmm. And I want, before I answer this, Keith, I want this to be understood. None of these players are committed to Notre Dame, and a couple of these are still very much open in the air. I think all of them are still up in the air right now. We're not really 100% sure what's going on here, okay, with all of them. But, okay, so I would go number 1. Most likely, I believe, is Caleb Smith right now. Although there's still a lot of that to be decided on that one. Mm-hmm. Number 2, I would say, is Brandon Hillman. Number 3 is Khalil Barnes. And number 4 is Christopher Tarrick. I think they're in a good spot with all of them. But, again, is Tarrick going to decommit for Wisconsin? Still a major question mark.
Yeah.
Khalil Barnes is a December commitment. So is Brandon Hillman. You know, what's the class going to look like at that point? A lot to be decided with. But I would say Caleb Smith, Brandon Hillman, Khalil Barnes, Christopher Tarrick. That's kind of my order of stuff. I don't know if you agree with that, Sean. Disagree?
I rock with that. I rock with that. That's a pretty good order. I rock with that.
All right. Archer asks, Ryan and Sean, where do you see Keon Keeley ending up? Sean, do you have you think so? You think Ohio State now?
Yeah.
Huh. Is there a reason that you think that now?
Product on the field.
Okay.
Product on the field. I think it comes down to Ohio State and Alabama. I think Alabama's defensive line really hasn't lived up to what you thought they would produce with Turner and
Will Anderson.
Mm-hmm. And I just think that front line, the emergence of the youngsters, the sophomore class, and Harrison, their defensive line has just been really dominant. And going there a couple of times like he has and seeing that, ultimately in the end, I think he ends up there. I really do. I think seeing yourself in that offense in that defense, I'm just not sure what he sees, right? Yeah. And this is like honest conversation, like what's important, right? Do you believe in where the program is headed under Saban, right? The defensive line has been underwhelming for the second consecutive year at Alabama as far as putting pressure on the quarterback, getting after the quarterback. And now, first-year defensive coordinator that has totally changed the defense in Columbus. Like these are factors that you're thinking about and that the people around you are thinking about. And I really think I would give the edge to, Ohio State.
It's interesting. I still lean to Alabama, but I can get where you're coming from. I do think there's some conversation there, but I'll still go Alabama for the sake of the question. But Ohio State is obviously in the mix. So, Keith also asked Sean Ryan if Tarek doesn't come, does Notre Dame take Hillman and Barnes? That's interesting, Keith, and I don't want to speak on it because I'm not 100% sure what would happen in that situation. I think they would entertain it. But I do think they would like to get fifth offensive lineman in the class, but I don't know the answer to that one. So I don't want to comment on it too far. I'll get the answer, though. Guarantee I'll get the answer. No doubt about that. But, yeah, that's an interesting one, though. We had Michael say, Ryan and Sean, did 2025 quarterback target Mikey Gao, I don't know if that's how you pronounce the last name, by the way, visit unofficially for the BC game? Also, what do you think about the individual in regards to Notre Dame interest and so on? Thank you both. So, Michael, he unfortunately was not able to make the trip to South Bend this weekend. He sent me a picture at like 2 a.m. I woke up, Sean, to a picture of his he had like the car, like the tire just got like slashed up. They had like 2 flat tires. They had ended up going back to his hometown, and he wasn't able to make the trip to South Bend, unfortunately. I know Mikey does want to make it there, though. Like, that is definitely in the cards. He wants to get down to a game. Just unfortunately didn't happen for the Boston College game. But he's only a 2025 kid, so just finishing up his sophomore year. He'll have plenty of time to make that visit happen as a recruit down the line, but unfortunately wasn't able to make it. Michael, I thought that his film had a lot of really nice stuff on it from a talent perspective. He just was limited to one game this year because of injury. So we'll keep obviously monitors on him. 2025 is a long way away, but unfortunately Mikey was not able to make the trip this weekend, unfortunately. But I'm sure he will in the future. We had John Erickson says, question, who do you project to be the starting front 7 on defense next season, Sean? Starting defense next season?
That's tough. Ask us after the portal, man.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Are there any players? Let's go from this way, Sean. Instead of projecting the whole front 7, are there any players that like you would just pencil in right now and be like, that's the guy at that spot next season? I guess that would be a better way to take it.
Automatics.
Yes.
Right. Automatics. Howard Cross is an automatic. Riley Mills is an automatic.
Yeah.
Nana probably is an automatic.
You think so? Huh? That's an interesting one.
I do.
Okay. All right.
And there's a great chance that Justin Adamiola, if Justin comes back, he's an automatic.
He's a very good chance, I think. Yeah, he's a very good chance. Yeah.
Those are 4 automatics.
Yeah. You know, it'd be fun though, Sean. I would like if they would change kind of the format of their defense a little bit. Like, can you imagine if Justin Adamiola came back? Maybe instead of the big end Viper designations, you throw Justin at one defensive end and the other defensive end, you let it be kind of a Joshua Burnham, Aiden Gobira couple at the other spot, man. That'd be fun.
That's where I'm going to, because that would be your second unit. That would be Josh and Aiden coming off the edge.
Yeah.
With Jason Onye and Tyson Ford and whatever, transfer portal depth you want to add coming in to support that. That for the most part would be, I can't forget, wait a minute, because I have to say this. I'm tripping a little bit. Gabriel Rubio is going to play a part.
Oh, for sure.
In that interior.
I wouldn't be surprised, Sean. Do you think that, is this unrealistic to think maybe Gabriel Rubio plays a larger snap at nose next year, and then maybe you move Howard Cross around a little bit and let him play a little 3?
Gabriel Rubio, we kept saying, the more reps he gets, the better he's going to get.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot better.
Every week, he keeps flashing. So, you overlook him. What we heard about Donovan Heinrich. We keep hearing how great he's having, how good he's been in practice. Does he play a part? There's a lot. The names won't be as flashy as we've been used to, with Jason Adamiola being there, and going back to when you had Kurt Heinrich and some other names. But the production There's going to be a lot of starts on that defensive line and a lot of playing time on that defensive line next year. Yeah. If certain guys come back. I expect Justin Ademilola to come back. I do.
Yeah.
I expect him to come back. Because
I'm interested to see what they do with Tyson Ford next year, Sean. If he's a big end or he starts moving to 3 tech, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because he's got a frame where he could be 290 easy.
Yeah.
Big kid, man. I'm interested to see him. He could be a moving chess piece next year, too, for the defense, I think.
I agree.
It'd be cool to see. We only have 2 more questions left. D-Troll Hunter just asked, do we expect Kenny Minchey to take other visits? No, we do not. Just wanted to hit on that one quickly here. And the last one, Sean, a fun one. You said you're in the Thanksgiving mood now. So someone asked, how do you prefer to cook your turkey? And if you don't use a smoker, why don't you like good food? So first part, Sean, how do you like to cook your turkey?
Irish blooded. If I was going to do a turkey, I am a huge fan of both smoker, but I'm also a huge fan of deep frying it. But you have to know how to properly deep fry a turkey.
I've never had deep fried turkey.
Ryan Roberts.
Yes.
My man.
Yes.
Please put that on your bucket list, okay?
You know, I have had, though. It's really good. Yeah.
But I am not a turkey person.
Me neither.
I did not grow up with turkey. During the holidays, and this is just because of my grandfather and my dad, I eat goose.
Oh, you eat goose? Okay.
Yeah. And my mother is fantastic because, goose is gamier. It's an acquired taste, and you have to do a really good job of properly seasoning it. And my mother does a fantastic job seasoning it. And it's an expensive bird now. It has my mom. She complains every year. It's like $110, $120 every year. And you have to go search and find, the best price. But yeah, it's an expensive bird, but it's the preference of my father and I. And then pretty much the rest of the family eats regular turkey that we take out of the smoker. So, but that fried turkey, yeah, you're right, Michael Campbell. Yeah, we have a gentleman at our church that recently he fell ill, but that was his business every year. He took orders of fried turkeys, and man.
See, Sean, I'll say this: I haven't had deep fried turkey, but starting point. I know you mentioned it already, so I'll say it. Yeah. Turkey is extremely overrated. It's extremely overrated. It's not very good.
I can rock with that.
I'm not really a turkey guy, man. Chicken for sure. I'm a big protein guy, but not a turkey guy. Just don't like turkey that much. I'll say this though. A couple of years ago, we had a smoked turkey, and it was dope. It was really good. Tasted almost like ham. It was fantastic. Okay. Never had a deep fried turkey though.
Seasoning is so important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you use on the outside, but the brining process.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to choose to do that, injection. With seasoning injections for the interior, because you have to do that when you deep fry it. That's the key to it. Making sure you inject it and let it settle, and then prepare the turkeys and then drop them in. Definitely don't drop a frozen turkey into a fryer. That is
that's
a disaster waiting to happen. But you have to try it, my man.
I might have to, man. I might have to. See, my wife, her favorite her favorite meal is Thanksgiving dinner. If she was on her deathbed and she could have only one other meal, it would be a Thanksgiving dinner. So there you are, babe. That's all yours. I'm not a turkey guy. I'm not really I'd rather just have why don't we get some steak in there, man? Can we get a steak for Thanksgiving instead? You know what I mean?
You can always have a steak.
I never have a steak. I never have a steak.
My mom usually the 4 meats. She does 4 meats.
Yeah.
My mom's the best. So I agree with you. Thanksgiving is the absolute best. My mom makes the best dressing, stuffing, whatever you want to call it, in the world. Like people ask for like corners of her dressing, like days after. She is fantastic. But her 4 meats are usually the goose, the turkey, the ham, of course, right? But then she also does the prime rib.
Yes, that's what I want. I want some prime rib, man. That's
the prime rib. So you would definitely have something if you came to the Davis household for Thanksgiving, because that prime rib is my younger brothers absolutely love the prime rib. My dad always calls me like the day before, the night before, like, your brothers are already in here slicing the prime rib. I'm like, dude, like, you can't wait. And my mom makes every male in the family their own sweet potato pie every year. Every year. She does like 10, 11 of them.
I'll say this, Sean. While I'm not a turkey guy, I am a Thanksgiving sides guy. So give me some mac and cheese. Give me some green beans. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. We get down. We get down there. Mashed potatoes, of course. I don't even have to say mashed potatoes. Everybody likes mashed potatoes. There's never been a person that doesn't like mashed potatoes. So yes. But great question. Want to end this with this one, Sean. Not a question, just a comment. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, no. I'm an idiot. Oh, man. Sean, I had a great comment from someone that I just – here we go. Okay. Just want to end us here. Iris Mills 540. She said, anybody else wish they could work from home and cover Notre Dame football? Man, what a job. I'm here at the office now watching, and I'm just like, man. Iris Mills, you're 100% correct, sir. I just want to put this one out there because we're talking about being thankful this week. This is me and Sean and I's last recruiting hour before the holiday season officially kicks off. And I just want to say, I really do appreciate all the opportunity that I've been given in this sphere. And I want to thank everybody in this chat real quick for giving us the platform and giving us the opportunity to talk about Notre Dame football. We really do appreciate it. I know my family does. I sincerely appreciate it more than anything. I know me and Sean will have a great time just talking ball, as does everybody on the Irish Breakdown staff. So I want to thank everybody out there. If you could please, before you leave this podcast, if you're live with us on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast, hit that notification bell. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. Go to boards.irishbreakdown.com for some more recruiting intel, team intel, all the stuff that we bring to the table that we hope that you all really enjoy. I want to thank you all again for taking the time with us today. Fantastic day. Hit that like button. It's free. From Sean Davis, I am Ryan Roberts. Thank you all so much for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast.